Welcome to the February 22nd, 2022, the meeting of twos, 6:30 p.m. City Council meeting. We do have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. Would you please join me in a moment of silence? And the pledge to the flag. City Clerk, would you please read the rules to speak?
Yes, sir. Individuals wishing to speak on public and non-public hearing agenda items must complete a sign-up card prior to the item being introduced. Those wishing to speak on quasi-judicial public hearings must complete a sign-up card and sign the oath. Sign-up and oath cards are available on the table in the chamber. Individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items may do so under petitions from the public present. This opportunity is offered twice in the meeting, and individuals may speak at either the first or second petitions, but not both. No sign-up card is required. Citizens should not comment on any issue more than once during the meeting. All comments except petitions and requests must address the pending issue, and citizens will be given 3 minutes to speak. Citizens wishing to speak on the consent agenda must submit a comment card identifying the items of interest. Speakers will be given 3 minutes per item. However, citizens wishing to speak on more than 3 consent agenda items shall be limited to speaking for a total of 10 minutes, regardless of the number of items identified. All sign-up cards and exhibits being submitted to the City Council shall be placed in the box on the table in the council chamber.
Thank you, City Clerk. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 25th, 2022, 5:30 p.m. meeting?
So moved.
I have a motion from Member Nelson. I have a second from Vice Mayor. Roll call vote, please.
Member Robinson?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Minutes are accepted. City Manager.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. We have 2 agenda adjustments I'd like to bring forward. We'd like to table 10A to time certain of 8 March 22.
Do I have a motion?
Move for tabling table 10A.
Second.
I have a motion to table 10A from Vice Mayor. I have a second from Member Nelson.
To 8 March, if we could,
Yes.
And to what now?
to the 8th
8th
of
of
March.
March.
To that date,
8th of March.
8th of March.
Yeah.
All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Tabled. Next, City Manager.
Second item, staff would like to withdraw off of consent item 8F.
This is a withdrawal.
Yes, sir.
A motion to withdraw. Move to withdraw 8F.
Second.
Motion to withdraw 8F from Vice Mayor and Member Nelson. Seconds it. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? It is pulled. City Manager.
On to boards and commissions, item 6A. This is to review the members' absences and provide direction. Regular member Tuan Lee has missed 3 consecutive meetings, the October 13th, November 10th, and there was no December meeting and the January 12th meeting. A memo from the chairperson of the commission is attached for your consideration. He was asked to be here. He said he was going to be here and doesn't appear that he's here.
Vice Mayor?
Oh, no, he wasn't.
I see I called on you right there. Council, any comments or knowledge on this? Member Nelson?
It was my understanding that he did not wish to have his absences excused. Am I right?
Wanda, my understanding is in earlier conversations,
Yeah,
he
that's
was
fine.
saying that he was really, really busy and may not want to. We tried to get back to him to confirm that, and we were not able to do so.
Okay. And I see Miss Thompson here. So maybe she has some information. Do you have information on him?
I don't have any information. I'm sorry.
You know everything.
For once, I don't have any information.
Carly, you always
We'll talk
have.
later. We'll have information Friday. Thank you.
Okay. Wait.
Is she? Is she?
All right, Member Stokel?
Is Ms. Thompson requesting that he continue serving? It looks like that's what the letter is, but then I'm confused if he doesn't want to continue or we can't get a hold of him if he should continue serving. I don't know.
Could we consider tabling this until we can get in touch with him, or is he coming here?
When my staff spoke to him, he kind of indicated he was wanting to continue to serve, but we never received a letter from him. And he said he was going to provide us with something.
I feel like we don't know what he wants to do.
Right.
Yeah.
You can table it.
I would want someone to make that motion, and this thing sounds confused to me.
So moved.
Second.
I have the motion from Vice Mayor, second from Member Stokel to table. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
Is that to your next meeting?
The next.
Table to, what's that date? March 8th, table to March 8th, and hopefully we can get him to come tell us what he wants to do. All right, thank you very much. Move to petitions and requests. You're at the early show.
Good evening, Nathan Slusher at 860 Allendale Street. At the last meeting, I brought forward a proposal to send a request to the DEP for a public hearing for the citizens in Titusville. I followed up this week, or the last 2 weeks, with two of our county commissioners here. They got me some information. One was a map from Kurt Smith's office, and I spoke with Rita Pritchett's office about this for the DEP. It is definitely for the cooling towers, from what we're understanding. About 2 hours ago, I received the whole permit. I have not had a full chance to read it. It's 29 pages long. I've gotten about 5 pages into it back here. It looks like they're planning on using a sphagnum moss filtration system to clean the water as it goes back into the lagoon. However, it's 29 pages long. Even if I agree with it, I still think the public hearing is necessary because the original public notice was written, whether it was written by the DEP or it was written by SpaceX, I'm not quite sure, but the public notice was not very good. As I provided it to you guys, it says we're dumping non-treated water into the Indian River Lagoon. And at any point, whether it's a company or a government agency, puts a public notice stating that we're going to dump non-treated wastewater into the Indian River Lagoon. In this community, we should always stop and say, we need to have a public hearing. We need a presentation from the person in charge of the actual science of the event, the person who's going to be facilitating this. We need them to speak. So I'm here again tonight to ask you as a city to send a letter requesting that public hearing. In full disclosure, I did present this to county today. It was accepted. They are sending a letter for the public hearing in Brevard County. So I'm here because I do believe that 2 municipalities requesting from a state agency would only make them more inclined to have a public hearing for our citizens here on the coast.
City Manager, did we get a follow-up on that concern?
I believe what the petitioner said is there's a cooling tower on top of a hangar or two is what the application is. We have not asked for a public hearing from another state agency. We've really never done that before. The county could certainly do that if you want to attend that.
Member Stokel?
I'm confused as far as untreated wastewater going into the lagoon. I don't know if, is that a thing?
My understanding of the way
They can
a
do?
chiller, and Mayor, you had a chiller on top of Titusville High School, right?
Right, 4 of them.
So water runs down the chiller unit and then it goes into some kind of evaporation unit. And if there's any residual, but it's water that is brought out, run down the cooler, chiller thing, and then discarded.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not the expert, but there's
Yeah.
never any water, really. It was mostly evaporation and condensation and that sort of situation. I don't know that what we heard the first time was exactly what was going on. Would you agree with that?
No.
So what you said the
It is
first time is what was going
specifically
on.
It's non-treated wastewater, but it's for a wastewater management plant. That is in the public notice I did provide you
It's
guys.
just, it's hard for me to understand this when we have to report to DEP and we make sure we're doing things in accordance with them. And then you're sitting here saying that they're going and doing things that don't seem above board. So that's confusing a little bit.
I very much agree.
So I probably will do some private research on that. I don't know what that looks like with the public hearing, or what that would entail exactly.
When staff pursued your concerns, I understand that we went from dumping in the River Lagoon as to a chiller plant,
Yeah, that's correct.
which is not the same as, and I don't mind having staff look into it further, but
That's the only permit we could pull, and that's what DEP said the applicant had requested was for 2 or 3 chiller units.
I don't see calling a special meeting or anything for that. Vice Mayor? Anything to add? Okay. But when I missed you last time, we're caught up. All right, I will certainly get with staff again, but I will tell you the story changed from we're all what? And then it turned out to be a chiller. That was, I don't normally want to have meetings based on chillers, and I'd like to hear more from staff. I'm not the expert on that to say what exactly that means, but I can tell you it wasn't being anything that I could tell from the study going into the river and polluting the river. Chillers don't generally do that, but I haven't seen it, can't tell you, don't have pictures or photographs. But continue on in that reading and feel free to talk to me about that later. All right?
Okay.
Thank you.
And I do have light.
Oh, now you do.
Yeah.
Remember Nelson?
Yeah, and I agree. I would like to have some further information on it, if we could do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Just sort of check and find out specifically what it is.
I don't feel like I have the information
Yeah,
now to say, hey, we got to go do
We
this.
sent you we sent you the permit, the application for the
Okay.
permit, and it describes in great detail what it is. And beyond that, we're not the experts on a chiller unit either. That's why the regulatory agency is DEP.
I can tell you,
Go ahead.
I can tell you two things.
Yes,
Okay.
you're right.
One,
Go ahead.
it's called industrial wastewater because the two options are domestic or industrial. So it's industrial because it's coming off of an industrial chiller.
Okay.
The second is that the state law says that in order to discharge into any water body, you have to meet the standard of that water body. So in this case, if it's a Class 2 water, it must meet the standard of the Class 2 water, or it can't be disposed into that water body.
Okay.
So it will meet the requirements of the receiving water body.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I guess the challenge I have is you just said that the county commissioners sending the,
Absolutely,
so
yes.
I don't see why we, and it is the body that's, so I just don't see any use.
I wouldn't mind, again, follow up, and if it turns out to be the way you first thought it, that's a whole nother ballgame.
Just so you are aware, there is a March 5th deadline on this. The DEP has put a March 5th deadline on any request.
And just to clarify, what you have a county commissioner who had talked with you and said they're going to send a letter?
No, they made a vote on it during a meeting today. The county body made a vote, and it was passed to send a letter or send a request for a public hearing.
Well, if that's already done, that's a good thing, but I would definitely feel free to follow up with our county commissioner and say, what do you got? Because I just don't feel familiar with it enough to say, here, let's go do that. I just kind of out there. And then when we followed up, it didn't come across to our staff that it was pollutant. It was a air conditioner condenser. No, cooler, chiller.
Chiller unit, yeah.
Chiller. All right, well, thank you again. I appreciate you.
Tony Schifolo, 715 Tropic Street, the historic Norwood House. I wanted to come before you because I always come up and complain about a lot of things, but I wanted to say how great I thought Saturday's budget session was. I want to compliment staff on the setup and arrangements and the great refreshments. It's always great on a Saturday morning to have coffee and donuts. It was really sad to me, though, that only 17 citizens showed up and that you were ill and weren't here. You missed a very lively and informative discussion, I thought. And I thought that the sort of the informality of the session, even though it was tightly run. The facilitator did a great job of keeping everybody on focus and giving everybody an opportunity to express themselves to their full extent. And yet it seemed to be rather informal, and I think that allowed people to really speak their mind. And the fact that there were only 17 people goes back to what everybody was talking about: communication and transparency. And people that I work with on a couple of other committees that are very active, we meet, if not weekly, we're in contact daily with one another about the issues of the Indian River Lagoon, the condition, the tree canopy, the gateway. We're always talking about all these things. They didn't know about the meeting on Saturday. Duh. Communication. This town needs a radio station. Or we've got great tech guys back here in the booth. And I know they're trying to get, everything's on YouTube. And I don't know, is there like a YouTube channel? And we ought to really communicate to the community that we do have information and websites and access to the information. Communication, you guys were here, and Madam Stoffel, you heard everybody say. So I just wanted to reiterate that, and thank you again, staff, for the fruit on the table, too. That was nice.
I think of all the things I want to remember from this meeting, it's going to be that this town needs a radio station. That was cute. Next, petitions and requests. All right, floor is closed.
Stan Johnson. This is directed to a wonderful person. It's Mr. Diesel. Is that I've talked to you a number of times, and the council, and also Mr. Robinson, about a project that has big problems. And I've even sent you some emails, well, several. I mean, it's over 15 pages long, I believe. And it's even February 16th, 18th, 20th, and 22nd. We got those are some of the dates that I sent emails on this. And so on February 16th, I was told by Fire Marshal Anderson and KB Ofosu, who's our city engineer, that they were going to field visit the site. And I especially wanted them to take a look because the proposed road of relocation of Mockingbird Lane ends in a patch of bromeliads and a huge giant oak tree that's not shown on the plans. It's probably going to be destroyed. And there's another tree that's going to be destroyed too, not shown on the plans. It's on the other side of the property line. Nobody's doing anything about it. This has been going on for 6 months. Now, I represent clients, and there's people at the end of the street, they won't be able to get to their house. I think it should be corrected. I mean, it's been going on for over 6 months. Now, I mentioned at the last 5:30 meeting, I said is that the fire marshal said, hey, he found a statute of some kind of necessity that says it's got to be 12 feet wide, which City Council and P&Z passed it as only 10 feet wide as a very minimum, which is taken right now as they have for the most part, they have two-way traffic on that Mockingbird Lane. They're going to change it to one-way, which is going to lengthen their response time for the emergency. So anyhow, we've got this problem. And Mr. Diesel, you said you were going to look into it. You looked in the last 2 council meetings. You were going to look into it. So I'm especially looking at you because it seems like nobody's looking into it, and they're not reporting. They were supposed to report back. And I advised him, my council is that, hey, I'm coming to council tonight and reporting on this, and you were to get back with me. As for what they said on February the 16th, they didn't do it. I don't have anything. So I go to the fire station today and leave messages and so forth. I leave messages on the phone, emails and so forth. Nothing. What are we going to do? I mean, this is a plan that's been going on for months and months and months. I don't want to blame staff a lot because as far as I'm concerned, this engineer that's doing it is a crackpot. To do what they're doing is a crackpot. In other words, don't even provide public utilities for these 2 houses at the end of Mockingbird Lane. That's ridiculous. Okay, I'd like 2 more minutes.
I see none. Thank you. Any other for petitions and requests?
Thank you.
I see none. City manager. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Well, come on, they gotta be faster. I mean, I'm rolling.
Well, I need a stool.
Here we go. You've got 3 minutes, so
Honorable
fast.
Mayor and members of council, I'm Naira Atia, 2285 Beechwood Court. I come respectfully before you to ask for ideas on how to brave the day when the mockingbird no longer greets its friend by name. What is your plan to reverse the effects which lead to the silencing of birdsong and the dissolution of our natural environment? How do you suggest safeguarding our earthly home, this patch of ground we love and get to inhabit for such a very short time? I came to Titusville 2 decades ago because I simply fell in love with the nature in these parts. The various habitats and soil types in this region are phenomenal. I bought a home, I bought a second home, and I'm still here. My feelings have not changed, but the environment has. This is a reason why I joined other nature lovers and conservationists in gathering petitions on behalf of clean water and the Indian River Lagoon. We labor so that we might thrive in this miraculous place and to leave it for future generations to enjoy in health and happiness. Have you observed how acidic our habitat has become? It's growing concrete and dropping trees. Too soon, there will be no place to hide. We are catapulting into self-destruction as too many folks refuse to sacrifice 1 iota of self-gain for the greater good. Right after fossil fuels, improper land management, and industrialization to clean water, industrialization are the primary reasons why our lagoon is dying, and with it, so much life. Please help us reverse this trend by putting our petition for the right to clean water on the ballot this fall. Before there is no more birdsong or clean water without which we cannot live and there can be no life. Can you help us ask Titusville voters, do they want the right to clean water? This same petition passed in Orange County by 89%. May I have a minute longer, please?
Not unless somebody up here says so. Somebody want to give another minute?
Can I, please?
Okay, I need a second. I got a motion and a second favor? Yes, 1 minute.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Can you help us ask Titusville voters, do they want the right to clean water? This same petition passed in Orange County by 89% of the vote. Can we match their score or do better? Coach, can we do better?
A lot of points.
Lest there be a question. The Right to Clean Water Charter Amendment reads, and I will quote, "To recognize a right to clean water and prohibit actions which interfere in this right, I humbly ask you to place our petition on behalf of clean water and the Indian River Lagoon on the ballot as a charter amendment for this November election." Here, Kate kindly brought you, yes, thank you. I'd like my basket back, though. Here are just under 1,000 petitions signed to back up my request to place this question on the ballot before Titusville voters this November 2022. Every one of us will be impacted to the death if we are not acting properly and promptly.
And thank you.
I
Thank you
thank
very
you,
much.
and I thank you all for your service.
Thank you very much. Hicks. Text is text.
Michael Myjack, Alpine Lane. You know, our lagoon is a vast expanse of water. It's 156 miles long. But did you know that it comprises more than 27% of Florida's salt marsh habitat? That's more than a quarter, 27%. Sorry, I'll move a little closer. Designated as an estuary of national significance in 1990, recently the Smithsonian Marine Station down in Fort Pierce has documented the IRL's biodiversity as over 4,000 species. I challenge you to find another place in the continental United States as beautiful and as cherished as that. Today, the lagoon is dying of eutrophication, a process in which a body of water becomes progressively enriched with nutrients and minerals to the detriment of the life in and within and around it. As you know, last year we lost 1,100 manatees. Sadly, we're on par to beat this record. Since February 11th's reporting of the SWC, we've lost 261 manatees in a month and a half. You can do the math. More than 1,000 this year. It's time we enforce our inherent right to a clean lagoon. And we've come up with a way to do that. Our group, Speak Up Titusville, is collecting these petitions to amend the Titusville City Charter to include the right to clean waters, which empower us as citizens of Titusville to ensure our waters flow, exist in their natural form, are free of pollution, and maintain a healthy ecosystem. I think this is something we all want. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, we all need water. To be clear, let's make sure that Titusville, the gateway to nature and space, is leading the efforts to correct a dysfunctional lagoon system before it's too late. Perhaps our grandchildren will be able to reap the seeds that we sow today if we take care of our waters at once, to see it once again full of seagrass and teeming with life. One day. Please follow Speak Up Titusville on Facebook and at nature-tribe.org. Please download our petition and turn them in. And I again request that we put this on the ballot for this fall.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
I'm Kate Perez, 3025 South Washington Avenue, Titusville. I also came here tonight to encourage you to put this measure on the ballot. We, the citizens, feel that we deserve to be able to vote on whether we have a clean lagoon and whether we're actually effectively working toward that goal. I know that all of you love the lagoon as well, and staff, and I don't think there's anybody here who doesn't love it. But I do feel like our efforts have been a little bit timid, okay? It's like, this is our house, this is our home, our house is burning down. It's burning down right now, and that fire is just going to accelerate. And a couple of buckets of water, well, we did a 2.5-cent tax, or we did, you know, some bee mats, or whatever it is. It's not enough. It's not working. And I feel like this is the time for the council, for the government to be listening to the citizens, to be responsive to what the citizens want. We love the lagoon, and it pains every single one of us to see it dying this way. And we want more courageous leadership. We've got to do more if we're going to turn this around. So I also would ask you to please put this on the ballot so we can vote. It worked in Wekiva. It passed overwhelmingly. So Wekiva now has the right to clean water, and we would like to have that right as well. Thank you.
3 minutes, young lady.
Lorley Thompson, 3550 Irwin Avenue, Mims. So my subject might seem kind of petty after that, because that's really important. And I want to comment that I haven't had a chance yet to look at the SpaceX permit, but if they are proposing to dump fresh water into the lagoon, I want to remind you that fresh water is a pollutant in the lagoon. part of the problems that we have now is because we have too much fresh water going into the lagoon. And so if they are proposing to dump additional fresh water into the lagoon, that's a problem. But I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the Titusville Environmental Commission. I understand that this issue is coming before you at the next meeting, but I will be out of town, so I wanted to make sure that I voice the TEC's opinion out of my own mouth. We made a motion at the TEC meeting on February the 9th. The motion was made by Tom Perez, and it was unanimously approved. The motion was to change the land development regulations to indicate that Sylvester palms are not acceptable replacement for canopy trees. And that motion was unanimously adopted. Palm trees are not even trees. They're grass. They have little value as far as sucking up stormwater or taking up carbon sequestration. And then Sylvester palms are one of the top 2 palms that are susceptible to lethal bronzing disease, which can spread to other palm trees in our area. And so I learned at the last city council meeting that our land development regulations have indicated that Sylvester palms are the only acceptable replacement for canopy trees, and that has been in place since 1990. Well, that was 30 years ago. It's time that can change. You know, with this new disease and with global warming and the need to try to reduce stormwater from going into the river, it's time to change that. So in the technical manual, it should be removed from the city's technical manual, section 5, landscaping, table 1, approved trees and shrubs that are recommended for use in all landscaped areas. And the section for canopy trees, 50 feet to 100 feet height, that's where it needs to come out of. And it was stated that the planning department couldn't get around to this until next September, but all you gotta do is take it out of the table. How onerous is that? You take a tree out of a table, and that's all you gotta do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up.
Yes, my name's Casey Nodge. I still live on Maryland Avenue. I want to thank the mayor for the park benches at Sandpoint Park so I can sit and look out over the lagoon and see the 176 manatees that have died in Brevard County since January 1st. 6 of them in Titusville, 75 of them in Port St. John, where they're feeding them what? Lettuce? Lettuce that has no nutrition value for manatees when they could be feeding them water hyacinths that is so prolific in our freshwater ponds. Dr. Lisa Soder and Dr. Wanda Jones, who's a specialty in manatees, have both said that this water hyacinth will not become invasive in the lagoon because it's a freshwater plant and it cannot handle the salinity of the lagoon. All we need to do is scoop up the water hyacinths from our ponds and present it to FWC. FWC's representative called me. I sent you a report on that phone call. I sent an email to state representatives about the plight of the manatees. They forwarded my email to Sarah Barrett of the Imperiled Species Management Section in Tallahassee, and she was told to call me. We had an extensive phone conversation in which I asked her, how will FWC prevent manatees from dying next year? Her answer was, and I read it back to her, we don't have an answer for next year. FWC has no answer for next year to prevent manatees from starving. They won't think out of the box and think about other ways of doing it. They just keep feeding them lettuce and they keep dying right in front of them. I'm going to tell you again, 75 manatees died in Port St. John, right where they're being fed lettuce, which is not their natural food. I don't care if you feed them that in a swimming pool. They're in the lagoon where they need natural native vegetation that is nutritious. So what can we do about it? I think that's a question council needs to ask yourself. What can you do about it? What are you doing about it and what can you do about it? You can offer your vegetative harvesting boat to FWC. You can offer trucks to haul the hyacinths. You can write to your state representatives like I did. And you can talk to Sarah Barrett. I'll be happy to give you her phone number or her email. And I just can't sit still without telling you once again that 261 manatees have died in Florida, 176 in Brevard, 6 in Titusville. But I certainly do appreciate those park benches. Thank you very much.
Still, before we get off of the park benches, I do hope that other people like them.
I do like them. I truly do like them.
But I would say, and I'm not sure, because I haven't heard anybody out there say, hey, I'm glad that happened. But when we talked about talking to the state representative, I had a conference with the state representative that very week.
Very good.
And then after we had that, he got together 5 people from FWC. I understand that's probably not your happiest area, but that's actually in our last meeting when we talked about that several meetings ago. We actually at the fire station. That was who we knew to talk to. So we actually had a Zoom conference with 5. I don't know who they were, but I do know that they were from FWC, and this Representative Placentia was on there.
Very good.
And we had probably 45 minute to an hour conversation. During that time is when I said, when they were talking about, well, we're very concerned about human contact and this and that. And my comment, not knowing exactly what to feed them, lettuce or what the things that you said, I didn't know until later. Maybe that wasn't the greatest thing, but I will say, I felt that they were better fed than dead. And I mean, when we're delaying because we're worried about human contact, I get the human contact, but I also get that we've got to get them fed before they're dead. And I don't want to be cute with that. I also wrote a letter to the governor from the city that I had the staff put together and I signed. So after that meeting, we didn't sit still, and I'm not sure anybody knew, but like within 3 days, I was meeting with the state representative and a letter to the governor and 5 FWC members. And the reason the FWC guy was here was because I invited him here to answer questions.
Very good.
And so that's where we were with that. So when you say, are you calling or talking to her, I definitely am. And as a representative of our city, that means we are. Nobody, I mean, we talk about nobody wants a lagoon that's not clean. Well, there's nothing, worse than the manatee issue. Well, there's things worse, I guess, but not too good. So I totally appreciate that. And thank you again, Ms. Kay.
And I appreciate the opportunity for you to tell us what you have been doing. But unless I ask you, I'm not going to hear what you've been doing.
Actually, I did tell some people on the tree team.
Okay.
And when I do that, I think it might get out. Stan tells everybody else that, but he didn't tell them that one.
Well, keep on working for the manatees. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? All right, city manager.
Okay, we're on to a consent agenda item. City Council, do you have any questions of staff on any of the consent agenda items? Any council member request to pull any of the consent agenda items? Clerk, are there any cards on any of the consent agenda items?
We have one individual on 5 items.
Mayor and council, with your permission, I'll read the titles for the record.
Thank you.
Consent agenda item 8A, approve the funding for the Certified Production Technician Scholarship Program. 8B, accept the grant award from Jess Medical Foundation Grant Award for Emergency Medical Services Equipment. Consent agenda item 8C, approve the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Area Plan. Consent agenda item 8D, accept and authorize the city manager to execute the subdivision settlement participation in the state of Florida settlement with opioid manufacturer Endo Pharmaceuticals. Consent agenda item 8E, approve the contract award for the construction of the Causeway Lift Station improvements. You tabled consent agenda item 8F. Consent agenda item 8G, approve advisability for the application requirements for the future land use map amendments.
All right, council, anything you want to say about any of those? No? Call the card, please.
Stan Johnston,
So,
Stan, John, I might ask for extra time on this.
so what are you going to speak on?
Well, I want to speak on, first of all, it's an issue of like a point of order, and that would be on item 8G. So I'm going to ask for some clarification on that. Don't use my time for this. He's asking me questions. Start my
8G.
clock over.
Stop the clock for just a second. You come up and tell me what you're going to talk about. That's part of your presentation here.
Okay, but you're talking now, so we
So no.
stopped.
I'm allowed to talk, and you're asking me to stop the clock. I stopped the clock. Now let's get back to the.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'm going to start the clock, and you're going to tell us where you're going to talk about, because we're not going to jump around and try to figure it out. Start the clock. Where you
Okay,
going?
all right. The first thing I want to talk about is what I call a point of order, because I keep been told that when council does advisability, I can't speak. In other words, we have a whole bunch of agenda items, and when it comes time to say advisability, I want to speak against the advisability, and yet I'm stopped. So here's what we have. We have it says 8G. It says advisability application requirements for future land use map amendments. How in the world are you going to allow me to speak on that when every time else you said I can't speak on it? It doesn't make sense to me. So I'm saying, why in the world are you doing it now, letting me speak, but you wouldn't let me speak on these other items? It's not fair. I don't think I'm going to get an answer. I'll just use all my time up just blabbering. You're not going to get an answer, am I?
You going to talk about some other ones? You went to G.
Yeah, in other words, you're not going to answer that one. Nobody's going to answer that one. Okay, let's go for some other ones. 8A is neither. 8B is neither. 8C is neither. But in that 8C, look at that. Neighborhood NRSA plan. And that has to do with empowerment of the residents. And that's an area that is needs help. These people are indigent, and some people are. It's a lesser area, and right now is that the city is running over them. I'm talking about the city of Titusville is running over our residents. And I told you this about just like this SNJ Oaks, Mockingbird Lane's not even recognized. People who live in a house, they won't be able to get to the house when you with the plan that you're approving. So this is important. So I've certainly, all I said, neither. I approve of this, and I want y'all to recognize it's a problem. I want Joe Robinson to visit that, and also Dan Diesel. Okay, next one. 8E, $775,000. Again, who is it going to be managed by? Unbelievable. It's the same guy. Same guy. Sean Stauffer. $775,000. He's the same guy who did this. Sprayed the public, sprayed cars, sprayed food from fountains, wouldn't turn them off. $775,000. Not only wouldn't he turn them off, he won't answer his phone. Water Resources wouldn't answer the phone. They won't respond to emails. How long? 4 months. So what did he do? What did the city do? What did the city do about this case? They completely denied it. How did they deny it? Did you know how they denied it? You probably don't want to know this. They did it by a false report. Consent order. Consent order last year is something that the city of Titusville and Mr. Stauffer and our city manager, they endorsed, saying, hey, you know what? When we stopped sewage going into the Indian River on December the 19th, that 7 million gallons, we stopped on December the 19th. Although everybody knows that have been watching it, it continued even into January. I saw it in February. People saw it in April. Not only that, we had fish kills after December 19th over there in Spaceview Park. It was all baloney. Phony baloney from the same guy. We're going to authorize him to spend $775,000, who was also involved in this $11 million project, which is a boondoggle. So the guy is blind, deaf, and mute. He's blind to what's going on. We have all kinds of witnesses that happen. He's deaf. He doesn't listen to a thing anybody says. and mute because he doesn't say anything. In other words, when I come up here and complain about this stuff, what does he do? He's mute. Another word for that is dumb. But he's real smart. He keeps he's paid good money. Paid good money to do this. I can't understand why in the world you guys listen to this guy. He's usually here. He should be here tonight. But he's heard it many times from me. So in other words, we got photos, we got videos, we got witnesses, but what we have that City of Titusville approved and FDEP approved. And also, Florida Today, what we did is we sent it. I'm not the only one that witnesses this. I'm not the only one who sent photos to FDEP and council members and Florida Today. Not the only one. You know what the Florida Today printed about this? What did the Florida Today print about this? Absolutely nothing. 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 This is what we have here in the city of Titusville. Space Coast capital of the world. City is also the, what would you say? The errors, cover-ups. Space Coast capital of errors, cover-ups, and what, dishonesty? I mean, this false report's pretty bad. I don't know if Florida Today won't even report stuff. And you know what? I talked to one of the a journalist, and he said, "You know why I can't print that stuff against the city of Titusville? Why can't I print that stuff? Because if I do, the city of Titusville won't give me any information on anything else, and I will what? Lose my job."
Stop the clock.
Yes, sir.
Which one are you talking about right now?
I'm talking about Mr.
So far, you've said.
I'm talking about the award of contract for $775,000, item 8E.
I haven't heard anything on that in about a minute and a half. Let's get back to it. Go, clock.
Thank you, sir. So the thing is, we shouldn't be authorizing this guy for more money for him to spend and manage, because he's proven to us that he's completely dishonest. No, he's really horribly more than dishonest. I don't know what, but he's blind, deaf, and mute. He doesn't listen to what he won't. He turns his phone off. He won't listen to his emails, and he won't respond. And I guess the same is true pretty much for the Florida Today and our council, because they wouldn't turn it off. In other words, $775,000. I think we could spend that to turn off the switch or turn off the valve to turn off the fountains. So we were spraying people on Sandpoint Park and Spaceview Park for 4 months, and they couldn't stop it. I mean, what happened to me? My goodness, when I tried to do it, they called the police on me several times. I had the police calling me. "You don't watch that stuff. Don't even get near it." So they called the police on me. I had 2 trespass warrants issued against me. So anyhow, that goes for 8E. And what have I got about? How much time do I have? I can't see it. About what?
About a minute 45.
A minute and 45 seconds. So not only was it, this has to do with the spillage of the sewage, and this has to do with the sewage spray, which was in the ponds. And just to clarify, it is that when the city of Titusville, oh, I'm sorry, I'm disturbing your meal, Sarah, Dr. Shelton. I mean, this is the time to be.
Right here.
Yeah, sorry, okay. So what I'm saying is that this consent order that was a false report to the state by FDEP and the city, endorsed by FDEP, nullified all this. And you know what we get now? Is I just heard a report about what the septic tanks are doing to the Indian River, and what's in the sludge and that muck, and it says so much percent is because of septic tanks leakage. Guess how much they reported for sewage discharge into the river? Zero. Zero. So what you can see is that, in other words, when you make these false reports, it affects everybody else. These scientists who believe, well, that's true what the state is telling us, the government's telling us. Well, it's not true. It's not true at all. It's absolute nonsense. So that's what we're doing. We're breeding dishonesty. The city of Titusville is breeding dishonesty. And it's not right. It's a government of errors, cover-ups, and more errors and dishonesty. So I'd like you to change.
Thank you.
I asked 2 more minutes. I won't get
I
it.
see none.
And Mayor, as a reminder, the consent is A through E and G.
We do
Whoever
have one
gives me that
additional
motion.
card.
Again?
We do have one additional
Okay, thank
card.
you.
Item C is for Tony Schifolo.
Tony
C.
Schifolo, 715 Traffic Street, in the heart of the West Titusville neighborhood that the neighborhood revitalization strategy area plan is designed to address. And along with the concerned citizens, I am a concerned citizen, although I've not been able to join this group due to the fact that they haven't met for the last 2 years due to the national situation. But we're still, and let me just say, because it's Titusville, and I say this in a loving way, this is the thing I love about Titusville. In the 2 years that we've been inactive and unable to meet and greet and discuss moving our neighborhood, unifying our neighborhood, because it's Titusville, not much has changed in those 2 years, and that is so wonderful, and that's what these CDBG grants would be for. And I'm probably not supposed to talk about, but I'm on a citizen advisory board that has applied to the state and for a grant to actually work in this community, researching, identifying, marking the heritage of the African-American business and residential district that is in this West Titusville neighborhood. And there are 2 locally designated historic structures, the Carter House and the Norwood House, in this area. And there are many other buildings, both commercial and residential, that are just prime for rehab and renovation instead of clearing trees on empty lots or places to build new construction. Although with the coming LID that staff is working on, with the recently passed tree ordinance that we're still trying to tweak, and with the efforts to save the Indian River Lagoon, all these things combine in what this neighborhood is trying to do. And I haven't read the plan totally, but have seen a couple of presentations on it. So the things that I am aware of, and I am aware from my prior days in Atlanta with the CDBG grants and seeing what those can do for communities, how it can unite and pull them together and give them a start. So I would encourage y'all, whatever they come to you for about this CDBG grant and the revitalization strategy, that you support and encourage and help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other cards? All right, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items 8A through 8E and 8G.
Second.
I have a motion from Vice Mayor, a second from Member Nelson to approve the consent agenda. Roll call vote.
Member Nelson? Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Member Stokel? Member Robinson?
Yes. Consent agenda passes unanimously. City Manager.
On to item 9A, which is the ordinance number 4, 2022, Tranquility Community Development District. And the city attorney will read the ordinance for the record.
Ordinance number 4, 2022, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, granting the petition to establish the Tranquility Community Development District pursuant to Chapter 190 Florida Statutes 2021, concerning that certain approximately 455.76 plus or minus acres of land, describing the petition to establish the Tranquility Community Development District, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, and an effective date.
The developer, with the consent of the property owners, is seeking the establishment of a community development district. The CDD is a special purpose unit of a local government created pursuant to Florida Statute Chapter 190 for purposes of financing, constructions, operations, maintenance, community-wide infrastructure improvements, and services for the benefit of the properties within its boundaries. Ms. Bisaka is here to answer any questions, and I believe we have an attorney here as well representing the city, should you have any questions that we can't answer.
Council, any questions? Member Robinson?
Yes, I have one question. And I see the board members, and I remember from the last presentation that I don't think any resident has to be on the board until a certain period of time. But right now, that everyone, the board members, none of the five is on the residents, or is that correct? Thank you.
Yes.
Member Nelson?
This is actually for the attorney, and I guess I'm questioning or Peggy, is there any downside to this? I mean,
That's a good question.
It seems like, maybe I'm just suspicious. You know, I look at something, I go, I see the reasons for it, but is there any downside to it?
I wouldn't couch it in terms of downside. I think we can tell you what this could accomplish and what the process is. And Mr. Arden certainly could answer any questions you have. Now, the applicant and his attorney are here, of course, to answer questions about Mr. Watts is in the back to answer questions
Come
about his
on up
application.
and give your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Ken Artin. I'm with the law firm of Bryant Miller Olive, assisting the city attorney and staff in the petition that's before you this evening. Think of it as how a developer, landowner is financing public improvements. If they establish the CDD can borrow the money at a tax-exempt interest rate. We talked about that at the prior meeting. If you don't have a CDD, you basically include it in your development loan and you finance it through the bank. So this is a way of lowering the cost of financing the public improvements. They can't use this to build homes. The CDD can only do water, wastewater, streets, stormwater, the true public infrastructure that you would see in a development. It is not a development loan where they can use these bond proceeds to build homes.
Okay. Part of me is like, I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
That part's easy. And I also look at it in terms of when this gets up and running, the residents can make their own decisions about what level of service they want.
Well, you're correct. And to go back to your very first question, are any of the board members, there are no residents. This is raw land. There's no homes. There's nobody living on this. So the way the statute's drafted, as the homes are built and the residents move in, once you get to a certain threshold, what happens is the members of the Board of Supervisors gets elected by the landowner, and then elected one seat starts getting elected by the residents. And then eventually each year more residents move in and more seats are elected by residents to the point of the residents elect all 5 board members. At that point in time, all the roads and sewer pipes are already in, and it's a matter of, all right, let's maintain what's in the community. We represent CDDs that are basically, if the roads are owned by the CDD, and I'm not sure what the improvements here are, then they have to make a decision. When are we going to repave the roads? When are we going to, how much of the special assessments? It truly is a super HOA, because unlike an HOA, a CDD can actually put its assessments on the tax roll, and thus they can borrow the money where an HOA typically can't, because if you're in an HOA, you can decide not to pay those assessments.
This has more teeth than
it has much more teeth, and that's why they're so popular on major projects. You wouldn't do this for a small little subdivision of 10 to 15 homes. It has to have the scale, because once you create the government, it's subject to The Sunshine, it's subject to annual audit. So you've created a government that needs management, and those costs basically have to be borne by the residents.
This is a question for Peggy, and I don't remember, I apologize. My brains haven't been working the last couple of weeks, but were the roads owned by the city or by the development?
That would, the applicant may want to correct me, but as it stands right now, there are private roads in the single-family subdivision.
Right.
And public roads throughout the rest of the subdivision,
Okay, so it's a
throughout the rest
mixture.
of the development.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Member Stokel.
Yeah, that was kind of my question from, I guess, a legal standpoint. If something goes wrong or if this doesn't work, where is the city involved in this?
Nowhere.
Nowhere. So
Once you create it, there's two kinds of special districts in this state: dependent, which means you control it and you're electing the members of the board, and independent, which are CDDs. And so once you authorize its creation, it is basically independent of the city. It is in control of its own destiny. And we saw what happens when they don't work. And during the financial crisis, land values went to zero. Nobody was buying homes. Nobody was building homes. And the investors had to deal with that. And the investors are the owners of the bonds that are issued by the CDD. And basically, they are the ones that are taking the risk that this developer is going to put these streets and water pipes in, sell the homes, and the residents are going to pay their assessments on time when they pay their tax bill.
So it would be similar as if somebody from the county, for instance, came to our council wanting assistance, and we would say, sorry, that's not our jurisdiction. You'd have to contact the county. This would be the same thing. We can't do anything.
It's even more dramatic. They're going to come and say, hey, you created this CDD or you authorized it.
Right, and then we can't do anything.
Yes, they don't have a leg to stand on. You would say, sorry, read your documents. It's clear the city has no responsibility, and there is no liability on the city council in that regard.
And then are they accountable to the state, or who are they accountable? Say something.
Who's the they in that sentence?
The CDD itself. So say there's an infrastructure fail, something goes wrong, who fines them, who potentially holds them accountable?
Well, keep in mind if they're building water and sewer pipes.
Mm-hmm.
Those water and sewer pipes feed into your system. So they're just putting pipes in the ground. People are flushing toilets and cleaning sinks, and they're just using that. But they're responsible. Typically what happens with water and sewer pipes like that, once they're in the ground, they're built to your code standards and they're dedicated to you. So
A lift station, would that, if they put in a lift station?
If they built it and dedicated it to you,
we would maintain
you
it
would
and do the
maintain
upkeep.
it. But if it's their lift station, the CDD maintains it. The stormwater ponds, if the stormwater ponds aren't doing what they're supposed to do, stormwater ponds, it's a good example. CDDs usually retain the ownership of stormwater improvements. And if that system fails, then they basically have to bring somebody in, figure out what's going on, assess themselves, just like an HOA would do, and repair the system. And so they're responsible for the improvements they own.
So would it be safe to say that they are in jeopardy of potentially getting fined from the state then at that point? Is that the accountability?
If there's some failure in a
Right.
stormwater system that subjects you to fines,
Okay.
but
I'm just trying to see how this
yeah,
works conceptually.
typically they're not involved in that type. They're not running wastewater systems. They're not running water systems. They put pipes in the ground.
Okay.
And they put the streets in, and they have no. They're typically not involved in the operation of the utilities that go in. They're just putting the pipes in to get it to your system.
But
or
that
the systems that
So
do it.
after we vote on this, though, that would be further clarified between an agreement if there is shared, or they do put in a lift station and designate it to us.
That's
I
all
just
part
wanna
of
make
your
sure that
city.
the
That's
city,
all city code. That's city code. That's got nothing to do with the CDD.
Okay.
Think of the CDD strictly as how they finance it. They're able to lower their cost of financing because they can do it with tax exempt bonds. That's the big benefit.
Okay, all right, now that helps clarify, thank you.
Staff, Peggy, anything else?
No, sir.
All right. I wasn't really trying to tell a joke. Just wondering if you had anything else you wanted to say. It must be, that's not even 9:30 yet. Any cards?
Yes, sir. 2. Mark Watts.
That's
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. I'm here on behalf of the petitioners and am an attorney with Cobb Cole. For the record, my address is 231 North Woodland Boulevard, DeLand. So great questions, and I appreciate, and let me start out by thanking your city attorney and your staff and Mr. Arden for working with us on this over the past many months. This petition was originally submitted, some time ago, and we've supplemented and we've kind of gone back and forth and answered questions. And I watched your online workshop that you had back at the end of last year, and I think you had good questions then. So we're primarily here to answer questions that you might have. I know I think Ken has given you some very good answers to the questions you've raised so far. One of the principal benefits, I'll just tell you from my perspective, our firm represents about 3 dozen districts around the state. There's probably closing in on 1,000 of these types of districts throughout the state of Florida, because they are a very effective tool for not only financing the initial infrastructure with mostly large, master planned communities like the Tranquility development here. But I think they also give you a higher level of accountability and transparency when you get into the long-term maintenance of the infrastructure. And Ken alluded to it in the comments that he just made, but to the points that y'all raised with regard to the Board of Supervisors, you do start out with a raw land and a Board of Supervisors that it's appointed members, that are usually identified by the developer going in. But when you get to the point where the development's been going on for 6 years and when you get to 250 qualified electors, then you begin that transition process and it becomes a true, resident, controlled and managed entity. But unlike an HOA, it's subject to the Sunshine Law. It's subject to the state's annual, auditing requirements. We have to report to the governor's office, with regard to our, annual financial reports and things of that nature. And so it really does create a scenario where you have a much more transparent form of management of that ongoing infrastructure. And so that's just my perspective on it. I've been working on them for 10 or 15 years, a lot of times with Mr. Arden as well. We're here happy to answer any other questions that you might have, but I want to again thank your staff, and they've done a great job working with us on bringing the petition forward to you this evening. So,
thank you very much. I see no questions, Council. I see no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Next card.
The last card is Dan Johnston.
Stan Johnston. Now, this topic has come to the board a number of times. Recently came to the board, and I had no opportunity to speak about it because it was a presentation. I wanted to speak very much vocally against it. Why would I speak vocally against something like this? I'm 75 years old, and in the last few years, I've seen some things very differently. Is that I've seen some dishonesty in my profession and dishonesty and so forth in people I have trusted, big time. And when we have something like this, which is a super HOA, and we talk about transparency and accountability and sunshine law and so forth like that, I have suspicious doubts about what the heck can happen here, especially when I can think about here in space. I've been here for over 50 years, and I've seen booms and busts. And here we are going to have a new government. This is a new government. CDD is a new government in which they're going to tax people in their area, and it's going to be on their tax bills. And where that money going, which is going to be millions and millions of dollars. I mean, when we have even trouble here in our government, and my goodness. I just don't trust a bunch of people who are going to be on committees and so forth like that. All it takes is a few bad apples to make big money somewhere else, and we're pocketing the wrong pockets. So I'm very much against it because I I just think that it's going to be abused. I mean, if we had honest people, it would be a great idea. But I'm finding out that it seems like people I thought were honest, people who go to church and stuff like that, and go to these big meetings and say that they're wonderful people and all that, a lot of them are just not what they say they are. They don't walk the walk. They certainly talk the talk, like Mr. Jordan. So I'm very much against it, because that's what I've seen. I'm 75 years old, and that's what I've seen. And if it were 10 years ago, I would probably have said, okay, but not now. I've seen too much. So I'm against this another super HOA. And then when you think about timeshares and how they've abused their little, cleanup duties and so forth like that, the charges for timeshares is exorbitant. And I know it's not going to be like that, but I think it's comparison, as you can see, abuses of a system, of maintenance and so forth. How you can get your brother-in-law to clean the sewers at a very exorbitant price.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm against it.
Any other cards? Council, Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, I move that we approve ordinance number 4-2022, Tranquility Community Development District.
Second.
I have a motion from Member Jordan. I have a second from Member Nelson. I think it said Member Vice Mayor.
Okay.
I don't want to mess that up. Anyway, with that, roll call vote. Oh, Member Stokel?
Oh,
Okay, roll call vote.
Mayor Diesel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan,
Yes.
Member Stokel,
yes.
Member Robinson,
Yeah.
Member Nelson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. City Manager.
On to item 9B, which is ordinance 3-2022 relating to tree survey requirements. City Attorney will read the ordinance for the record.
Ordinance number 3, 2022, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances to differentiate tree survey requirements for developments meeting minimum tree canopy standards and commercial, industrial, and residential developments not required to meet minimum tree canopy standards by amending Section 30-40 tree survey required before permit and amending Section 6.1 master plan submittal requirements, 11.1 sketch plat required submittals, 12.1 preliminary plat required submittals, 14.2 pre-application meeting, and 14.5 site plan required exhibits of the Development Review Procedures Manual, and Sections 2.3 tree protection / removal, and amending Section 2.5 tree protection during construction of the Environmental Protection Technical Manual to amend requirements for pavement and grade changes within a critical root zone, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, an effective date, and incorporation into the code.
On December 14th, 2021, City Council approved advisability to correct the inconsistencies described and to amend the tree survey requirements of the Development Review Procedures and the Environmental Protection Technical Manuals to be consistent with the adopted code as corrected. Both the Titusville Environmental Commission and the Titusville Planning and Zoning Commission have a rather lengthy in your packet review and recommendations to council. And with that, Ms. Busaka will describe the item for you and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Busaka.
Of course. Prior to the adoption of the tree protection ordinance last year, the tree survey requirements were such that projects of 5 acres and less were requiring to have a tree survey of 6 inches and greater, and projects of greater than 5 acres could use an aerial photograph and a tree survey of 20 inches and greater. With the adoption of the tree protection ordinance, the amendment was made to the ordinance to require all projects to have tree surveys of 14 inches and greater. At the time that council adopted the ordinance and the tree protection ordinance, it was staff's understanding that the council direction was that commercial, industrial, and non-subdivision residential, that would be multifamily with site plans, were not to have any changes to their existing standards. However, when the ordinance was drafted by staff, the tree survey requirements were overlooked. So the staff proposed ordinance that was presented to TEC and P&Z was to go back for commercial, industrial, and non-subdivision residential, those projects that do not meet tree canopy. To go back to the 5 acres and less would require a tree survey of 6 inches and greater, and projects of greater than 5 acres would require a tree survey of 20 inches and greater and aerial photographs. The P&Z and TEC recommended that that change not be made. They liked the 14-inch requirement. Now, the differentiation here is that there is no requirement to mitigate trees less than 20 inches. So by surveying the smaller trees, there is an argument that there are additional requirements laid on these commercial industrial developments for which there's no mitigation requirement. The TEC and P&Z felt that without the knowledge of where these 14-inch and smaller trees existed, that the staff could not adequately help to guide the development so that those trees could be saved. So those are the two ordinance options that have been provided. Now, in the review of this, what staff has identified, because remember, we hadn't actually used this ordinance, this tree protection ordinance on the ground, what we identified was that the current ordinance actually penalizes the larger projects of 5 acres and greater, and made it easier for commercial projects of 5 acres and less. Because previously, commercial projects of 5 acres and less were required to have 6-inch trees surveyed, and now they're required to have 14-inch tree surveys. So one of the suggestions that staff has made is that in the event that council wishes to not penalize the commercial industrial projects of less than 5 acres, that they could remain the 14-inch tree for projects of commercial industrial projects of less than 5 acres, and continue to remain that in 14 inches or greater, which is consistent with the P&Z and TEC recommendation. And for those projects which are 5 inches and for those projects which are 5 acres and greater, which tend to be the industrial properties, that could go to a survey tree of 20 inches and greater. I'd like to make one other point. The information that was provided to you in September when the ordinance was adopted, approximately 3% of the total land area in the city is undeveloped industrial. Most of that is greater than 10 acres. Approximately 2.3% of the total property within the city is undeveloped commercial, and most of that is less than 5 acres. So as you can see, any change that's made this evening will make an impact to an individual project, perhaps a great deal, but citywide, we are talking approximately 5% of the total land area in the city that would be impacted by those changes tonight. And I'm happy to answer any questions I can.
You got a full house up here. Member Robinson.
I didn't have any questions.
Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're doing exactly what we say we're going to be doing. The only reason why we're bringing this back is because things were changed, and they shouldn't have been changed when we did the tree ordinance.
That is correct.
Correct. Okay, so we did get a few emails about this, of course, and I really didn't want to open this can of worms again. So I just want us to stay on the straight and narrow and just do exactly what we need to do. And I appreciate you letting us know exactly who would be harmed the most with this. So it looks like we should stay with the 14 inches, correct, for 5 acres.
For properties that are the commercial industrial subdivision less than 5 acres.
acres, right.
That's right. That would be the status quo of what they currently
Do
have.
now, right, exactly.
Correct. And then if you wanted to go back to what it was that City Council told us to do in September, then you would say that commercial industrial projects greater than 5 acres should have a tree survey of 20 inches and greater.
Right.
And I have that language, which I will distribute to the clerk.
To the court.
I've been
Clerk,
reminded, excuse me, that's why this gentleman to my right is the boss. There's also one sentence that staff has proposed that should be deleted, and that is the tree survey requirements shown in section 34C1. And that language says the tree and vegetation survey requirements as described below supersede all other provisions for tree surveys found in the city land development code and technical manuals. This sentence should be removed because it reduces the effectiveness of the incentives that council so carefully put in that would encourage people to do to maintain canopy. And though you remember that you talked a great deal about incentives, and this sentence should come out. And the reason it should come out is because the land development code is correct, but the technical manuals are being recommended to be changed because we never changed the technical manuals when we went through this. So we need, if you want to keep those incentives intact, that sentence needs to go. That's the bottom line.
Did you say C1? Is that?
I said 3040 C1. Yes, sir.
All right, that's what you have on the red line.
Yes, sir, it is.
I do have one other question, and this came from one of our constituents. For 3040, for areas be preserved for mitigation credit, the tree survey shall also include all trees 6-inch DBH. What do you think about that?
That was an issue that was brought to P&Z, and actually they punted that to staff and said, we'd really like you to consider that. The staff agrees that that would be a fine idea because, again, that would increase the incentive for someone to do canopy preservation, which I believe was the entire intent. And we appreciate, the staff appreciates the citizen who brought that forward, bringing that to our attention.
So you agree with taking
We
that
do.
out? Okay,
Yes.
thanks. That's all I have.
So
Thank you. Member Nelson.
So that's 30-40
Page is that?
E2. It's page 2 of 17.
Oh, here it is.
I believe that it is 30-40 C, what is now the new C1, because we just deleted the old C1.
Okay.
It says, and it is under,
So that would be,
and it is under A, and after the words greater in the development area, kind of in the middle of that paragraph, I think, yes, I think I have copies of that for you, but maybe I don't. Oh, I don't. I have one you can share, but that's all I've got. But it would be, yes, but after the words greater, there's a sentence that says, for areas to be preserved for mitigation credit, the tree survey shall also include all trees, inch, DBH and larger. Here.
talking about deleting one.
Deleting one, and then in the middle of that paragraph A, immediately following the deleted one, it says, for areas to be preserved for mitigation credit, the tree survey shall also include all trees 6-inch DBH and larger.
Okay,
Do you see that
I
sentence?
see that. Okay, then, the old 2, we're talking about leaving or in or removing, where it says for commercial, industrial.
That would be the suggestion if you want not to penalize those larger developments in that optional language, if that's what you want to do.
Greater than 5 acres.
And I highlighted in the yellow that you have in front of you.
Yeah.
Those are the changes that would make sure that the commercial industrial of 5 acres or less are not penalized from the current code, and that the commercial industrial greater than 5 acres are not penalized from the old code, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Oh, boy,
Okay.
I'm glad.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Member Stokel.
No.
Okay, I just want to clarify what we're doing before we have public comment come up. I think that we're all on the same page, because I remember when we addressed this before, we had a discussion about industrial and commercial. I think we're all in agreement on the less than 5 acres to keep it at 14 inches. The more than the 5 acres, I feel like that might be some discussion. I think that we were kind of leaning towards the 20-inch in our discussion before. And I know my reasoning was looking at these maps, and I have these printed out here if you guys want to see them. They show the vacant commercial and the vacant industrial, and then it's broken up by less than 5 acres and greater than 5 acres. And my big reason on this was, again, when Peggy mentioned it's not much property in Titusville that will be impacted. So I feel like that's the one thing that we may have some public discussion on. And then aside from the changes you suggested, is that covering everything? Is it those two?
Well, I didn't delineate every change in the ordinance. There was, we cleaned up a little language on the tree species names, and we made sure that all of the critical root zone language was the same. But that's essentially the,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I guess, yeah, we can hear public comment. I think the biggest, what I perceive happening is the greater than 5 acres, if it should be the 20-inch, or I'm probably going to hear that some people want it to go down to 14 inches. And then just to clarify one more thing, Peggy, I think you said if we were to vote it down to the 14 inches, that 14-inch to 20-inch, those trees, there's no mitigation plan in place. So it would really just be them identifying them, but then nothing comes of that.
That's correct. They're not required to mitigate.
Okay.
Now, there is a sentence that says they'll work with staff, and we say, can you move your building a little bit, hit this or that?
Okay.
Which is the reason that I believe that P&Z and TEC felt that that was good information to have.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else from council? I see none. Clerk, call the cards, please.
Edward Newman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Edward Newman, one of the owners of Dark Storm Industries and Dark Storm Development. We're going to be developing a 10-acre property in Titusville in the Spaceport Industrial Park for a industrial use. I want to thank the council and the staff for working so hard on this to get this cleared up. It unfortunately has had our project in limbo for the last 6 months, but I can say we can see through the trees at this point, and the end is near. So I do have in front of me the recommended version, which I think is pretty close to what's being discussed at this point, sans the exclusion of the original C1. I would say we were neutral on excluding that. I understand why. Don't have a problem with that. I think the addition of the landscape architects and nursery growers to the land surveyors is a huge plus on this, because let me tell you, none of the surveyors want to do this work right now. The landscape architects are much more willing, so we appreciate that flexibility. As far as the 14 and the 20-inch, my big question on my notes here is why? Why are we producing 14-inch surveys? Because there is currently no mitigation requirement for that. Is that information useful in moving things around? Possibly. Generally on a industrial site, we're limited into how much we can do. And in part, we are also on our site, we're preserving 4 of the 10 acres as natural vegetation. So we're preserving a lot on there. Interesting point of note on that, 40% of the property being preserved does not meet the 25% canopy requirement. It just depends on how the trees have developed, what size trees, what kind of trees. We don't have any oaks, we have a lot of pines. So I don't think in the case of our project, and only our project, the 14-inch really provides any additional benefit having that survey. That said, the cost of just doing that piece is not astronomical. The cost, just to give you a perspective, for 6-inch trees at $14 a piece is about $17,000 on top of already almost $10,000 in tree surveys. So again, just perspective on that, and that's for a 10-acre development, and something we did not have in the budget originally. The last point I'll make on that is we do have added under the new thing these 100 by 100 survey boxes, and I think those are good because those will give staff some of that insight that they may be lacking of, hey, what's the natural vegetation like, and are there different things we can do to move around? And again, where we've cited things, we've moved around the swamps, we've moved around wetlands, so we're not bulldozing them and as we could, and we could mitigate them. So again, there's once you kind of end up working around a lot of the natural things, if you're committed to the low impact development, there's really not much room we can move around too much. So again, I don't think the 14-inch really brings much value on our particular project. I can't speak for every other project out there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council, anything? I see none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next card, please.
Mary Spar.
Oh. Hi, Mary.
Hi. Good evening, council members. Mary Spar. I did send you an email yesterday. It was titled Need Hybrid Tree Survey Ordinance. I do believe you're moving in some direction with hybrid. What I had recommended, and I'm gonna toss out what I was gonna say because obviously there's been a new proposal, was that C1 deletion by staff, that really needs to be deleted. Just like they say, it's true. Also, the sentence that staff is now recommending that says that for areas to be preserved for mitigation credit, the tree survey shall also include all trees 6 inches DBH and larger. That requirement is very burdensome to developers. It's not needed. It's talking about vegetation. Suggest you take their advice on that. I really would like to see you stick to the one standard of 14 inches for the tree survey. Not sure that's going to happen, but there are a couple of reasons for that, and one of them is, as Susaka stated, allow the staff to identify trees that could possibly be that the project design could possibly save some of these. With that said, I can see the handwriting on the wall, kind of, but I do suggest that you do have 14 inches for everyone and try to have one standard that we can move forward in the future to have to preserve canopy.
Thank you, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Next card, please.
Hey, St. Ong.
Okay, St. Ange, Maryland Avenue. If staff's tree survey ordinance is adopted, protected significant trees 14 inches to 20 inches will not be included in tree surveys for commercial, industrial, or multifamily developments larger than 5 acres. Without a tree survey that includes these protected trees 14 inches DBH or greater, how will these trees be protected when staff and developer are unaware of their existence? I'm going to say it again. Without a tree survey that includes protected trees 14 inches DBH or greater, how will these trees be protected when staff and developer are unaware of their existence? We need a survey to know where they are, how many they are, how big they are. The designation of these trees as protected applies to all types of developments, not just single-family residential. So that is what the tree ordinance did, is it designated these trees as protected trees while you're removing their protection by removing them from the tree surveys. Staff's tree survey ordinance indicates as a condition of granting a permit, the developer shall work with staff to achieve preservation of healthy native trees where feasible. But how can they do that if they don't know that protected trees exist? The developer is to consider staff's recommendation to redesign the site to preserve such trees. This provision applies to all types of developers. A tree survey that includes all protected trees 14 inches DBH and greater is an essential tool for staff to work with all developers to preserve healthy native trees, not just mitigation-sized trees 20 inches or greater. An aerial photograph does not provide necessary detail for this type of collaboration between the developer and staff. With attention to design, many significant protected trees can be preserved throughout the development site in outdoor lunch areas where people can breathe. In landscape yards, LID vegetated swales and on street trees. As well-detailed tree surveys are needed for all sites to facilitate removal of invasive species per current code. So we need those tree surveys to know where the invasive species are. I've heard council members say we need to simplify our codes. Well, simplify it by following P&Z's recommendation that for all sites, the applicant shall provide the following: a survey of trees that lists the tree species, DBH, and quantity of each tree species, 14-inch DBH and greater. Include these protected trees in tree surveys for all types of development. Adopt P&Z's recommended version of the tree survey ordinance. Protect the protected trees.
Thank you, Ms. Kay. Next card, please.
The last card is Dan Johnston.
Dan Johnston, registered professional engineer, and I've got a solution for all this, and I want you all to listen to the solution because we don't really need what's going on here. We can really simplify, and that's what we want to do, and that's to simplify. So here's what we can do. I've got 5 different options that will simplify this whole matter. I want you to listen to what it is. One is we could just burn down all the trees. Just burn them down because we just like, we have these clear. Or we can clear cut them. Number 2, that's clear cut. Clear cut them all. Cut them all down. Number 3 is we could secretly cut down all the trees. You know, do it at nighttime or holidays, so forth like that. That's number 3. Number 4 is delete all the tree ordinances. That's number 4. But number 5 is what we're doing right now. 5 right now is what we're doing, which is it's kind of just the same thing. Is what we do is we have a tree ordinance. We don't follow it. That's what we're doing right now. And so in other words, we just ignore the tree ordinance. And what we could do is when we cut the trees down, we could plant them with something that'll be hardy, like Brazilian peppers. That works for FDOT. It's all along I-95. So that's an idea. So, for example, is that if right now is that like SNJ Oaks I told you all about, there's no tree survey there. In other words, they submitted something that says tree survey by others, a drawing, tree survey by others. No legend, no date, no nothing. Staff accepts it. I've been complaining for a month about that. Anybody believe that? Right now, we got a 3-acre project, all kinds of oaks and pines and all kinds of trees there, and we have no genuine tree survey. It's been approved for I don't know how many months, over a year, I guess. No tree survey. It says on the tree survey, on the survey, it says, trees surveyed by others. Now, what does that mean? Trees surveyed by others. And none of that is that I told you about there's trees there, that these big oaks that are going to be taken down. They're not even on that tree survey. What is going on here? But this is the plan that we're going by. So we don't really need to do any tree surveys at all, because the staff doesn't even, well, it's not requiring for that project. Or they just put something on drawing and say, well, looks good to me. No name, no date. We don't know what regulation it was. We don't know who did it. That's what's going on here in the city. But you're not listening to me, I know. So why don't you just burn them down or just clear cut the whole thing? That might simplify it. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Nelson.
Before we get too much further, I remember us talking about this, and we did agree that we were going to leave commercial and industrial as it was. However, part of me remembers that multifamily, we had a discussion, and we were going to include multifamily in with residential. And I believe that was the motion. And maybe Robert can stop me, because I know we were tired at that point.
The way I remember it is that there was a discussion about residential in subdivisions versus residential in site plans. And at first, there was all residential was going to be treated the same way.
Correct.
And then the compromise became, if it's a site plan, which really looks more like a commercial project,
okay,
then they were going to be able to meet the commercial standards. And if it was a residential subdivision, then it would be for instance, a townhome would be a subdivision.
Right.
It might look more like a multifamily, but it's platted.
Okay.
And that was as I remember it.
Okay. I remember the discussion.
Yeah, that was a big one. I remember that.
It was.
I think Robert was tired at that point. I know I was tired. Yeah, okay. But I think what our discussion was at that point was that we were going to leave commercial, industrial as it was. So.
What's that do to us here?
So we need a motion.
No, but what does that, we were going to leave it as it was. I mean, what, does that change?
Well, that means that originally it was 20 inches, right?
Yes, ma'am. Originally projects 5 acres and less had to do a tree survey of 6 inches. And projects 5 acres and greater had to do 20 inches.
Correct.
So from there, we went to everybody has to do 14 inches.
Correct.
So what we have done is, if you wanted to go back to the original language, then you would just take the staff's recommendation. Perhaps you want to do that additional sentence removed that Ms. Spar recommended, and then
Correct.
You would go back to that, and then that ordinance that's the one you'd adopt.
So
wait. We're not doing the motion yet. Member Robinson.
Yeah, I like the idea of a 14-inch because it ensures that we get as many trees as we possibly can. We don't have to go down to 6 inches, but if we got ensure the 14-inch trees are surveyed and make all of the other things and greater than or greater. And the commercial, I like the 5 acres versus and greater. And so the only thing that I want to stay with, and I recommend stay with it, make sure the tree surveys include the 14 inch.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I need to understand something. I'm not going to prolong this. I need this done for sure. We talked about the 14 inches and there was no mitigation. Is that what I remember?
There is no mitigation required for trees less than 20 inches.
Right.
If you're commercial, industrial, and non-subdivision residential. That's correct.
So we are doing the survey just to find out what's on the property.
Correct. And then if staff can work with the applicant to rearrange the project because they're aware of these trees, then that's what that survey accomplishes.
And that sounds reasonable to me. that reasonable?
Is what reasonable? Just,
You know he's getting tired when he's asking what's reasonable.
Well.
We have too many
let me-
pronouns
it's
here.
It's two questions in one, actually.
Great.
It sounds reasonable to me to do something like that, but now the business side of me says, how much does that cost?
right, and that's what Mr. Newman was trying to explain. The smaller tree that you survey, the more
6 inch.
cost it is.
Yeah, I understand that part.
So I've heard sometimes $14,000, $20,000 more on a 5 or 6 acre parcel to do the smaller trees.
The 6-inch trees.
Yes, sir.
But not the 14-inch.
I've never heard an estimate. I could guess, but I've never heard an estimate.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of eyeballing between a 6-inch tree and a 14-inch.
How you?
You mean it's hard to tell the difference?
I could tell a difference.
Are the size of the tree?
EBH, that's pretty big.
6-inch tree?
6-inch versus 14.
Yeah, that'd be the diameter.
Big difference between
Yes,
14 and
it's pretty
6.
That's what I'm
yeah.
talking about.
Oh, I thought you were
Oh,
saying
I
it
thought
was
you were
hard to
saying
say.
you couldn't tell.
Oh, of course you can tell.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what
That's
I'm
what we
saying.
thought.
That's what I'm saying. You know,
That's what we're looking at.
A 6-inch tree is a lot smaller.
Let's get back to Vice Mayor.
Yeah, so I want this to be right. So the 14 inches, I guess it just concerns me. It sounds reasonable to me, but I got a problem with spending $10,000, $20,000 survey just to have a conversation with staff.
And that's essentially what that is essentially the bottom line.
Yeah, you're paying to have a conversation
Right.
with staff.
And all the language says is that the applicant agrees to work with staff. It doesn't say the applicant agrees to agree with staff.
So if they don't agree with staff.
Well, then we have sometimes we arm wrestle. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth on these projects, but there comes to a point where we have to agree that this is as much as I'm giving up and this is as much as you're giving up, and we agree that that's the best compromise we can come to.
So with the 6-inch survey, is there mitigation?
The mitigation for commercial industrial is 20 inches and
So there
greater.
is no mitigation.
Correct.
So
For
I'm still
6
back-
inch.
There's no mitigation for any
anything.
6-inch
For
trees.
anything.
The advantage to owning a 6-inch tree is that you could identify it as it exists and it will go toward our landscaping or our canopy requirement. So if people find it to be an incentive, which is what you talked about, they will tell us where the 6-inch trees are, so they don't have to plant
Don't have to
more.
plant more, right, right.
But if they plan to take it down, they're not going to go to the extra effort to tell us about the 6-inch trees.
My concern is right back where I started from. We're talking about 14-inch trees, and it's only to allow them to. How would I? Because
I'm assuming that's a rhetorical question.
Well, it wasn't rhetorical. No, I'm serious because I just don't see the benefit to development to do it, just to talk to you, and then you say you arm wrestle with them to decide what's going to happen.
Right. There is you don't have to, we just negotiate it out
So why isn't this 20?
because staff made a mistake when we did the survey. Because I do believe that the council included that they intended for the 5 acres and greater to be 20 inch.
Right.
When it was smaller than 5 acres, it was always been 6 inches. And
5 acres.
it's always been 6 inches. And I believe that the intent of that was, again, so that staff knew what was there, they knew what was there, and we could negotiate the best project we could.
So we could approve this ordinance, but change it from 14 to.
Well, you need to have, we're not going to talk about anything related to residential subdivision.
Right, this is
Okay.
only.
For only commercial industrial, right now, everybody has to do 14-inch trees. So if you could make everybody do 20-inch trees for commercial industrial, which is actually less restrictive than it was before the ordinance was changed and less restrictive than it is today for 5 acres and less.
I like that.
So that is really the least restrictive.
20 inches, there's still a conversation.
At 20 inches, they're required to mitigate.
There you go.
That's the
14 inch,
requirement.
there
at
is no
20 inch.
mitigation.
At 14 inches, there's no mitigation for commercial industrial, that's
So
right.
why wouldn't you do 20 inches?
Well,
I'm just talking, I mean.
no,
this
I
is-
understand.
You know, this is.
It does allow staff to say, you know, you could move your driveway or move one of your parking spaces over there and save this
Right.
tree. And
That's what I'm saying.
that's what we do.
Mitigation
with it.
allows you to save some things. The 14 inch doesn't allow you to do anything.
It allows the conversation.
Conversation.
Yes, sir, that's what it allows.
That's not effective.
Member
All right,
Stokoe.
Okay, I just want to clarify. I think prior, though, before, with the less than 5 acres, we had agreed that 14 inches was, it was 6
It was
prior,
6.
but then I think our discussion last time,
It did not differentiate between 5 acres and less than 5 acres. It said everybody does 14 inches.
right, okay.
Yes.
So I think we were okay with that, and then I think, I had, from what I was gathering, this is why I kind of agree with Vice Mayor, but then the flip side. So I was thinking less than 5 acres would be the 14 inches. And then the more than 5 acres, that was the one that I could do 20 or 14. And I thought I thought staff was recommending 14 for the less than 5 acres.
Yes, because that,
Yeah.
yes. So the optional language that's shown on the paper in front of you would do that.
Okay.
Be 14 inches for the smaller projects and 20 inches for the larger
Yes.
projects.
Okay, that's right. I didn't want to do 20 across the board. Okay,
You
I
like
thought that's
that?
what you were saying.
Okay, so I got,
Okay.
I understand 2 of you. I'm not
Okay.
sure what the other 3 want.
So, okay. I think we're on the same page, Rob.
Member Robinson, basically just tell her what you're looking at. You say you want a 14 inch?
Go away with the mitigation and as far as costs and stuff, you're gonna probably break about even anyway.
Member Nelson?
I think I would go with 14 inches across the board.
No, and we're talking 14 and 20. And and let me go back and I don't want to open a can of worms here, but when we had the tree ordinance, what came your way or came our way and said, we need to amend this?
What happened is we changed the protected tree, the definition of protected trees. And so in doing that, we wanted to change the survey requirements for protected trees. And they went to 14 because that was the lowest requirement for mitigation, regardless of whether it, for the residential subdivisions.
And what didn't we like about that? What didn't we like?
Well, the reason this all came up is because originally council told us, do not change the requirements for commercial industrial.
Right.
So again, staff made an error. We did all of that except when it got to the tree survey. The first project came in, we got someone who said, well, look at the tree survey. And we went, oh, that's different than we think council told us. So if you want to go back to what you originally told us in September, then you want to have properties 5 acres and less to have surveys of 6 inches, properties 5 acres and greater to have surveys of 20 inches.
5 acres less, and anything greater than 5 acres.
And the reason that you can, part of the reason you do that is those larger properties, we say you could do an aerial photograph.
Right.
Because going out and getting a survey for a property that's 20, 30, 40 acres is a very expensive and time-consuming operation.
And
It can
this
take
is-
days and days and days. I think there's someone in the audience who told me that it was going to be like 6 days to do a tree survey on their property. I think that's what the fine folk at Verona told me at one point.
And so this doesn't apply to residential?
It does not.
This is
We're
just
only talking
industrial.
commercial industrial.
All right, Vice Mayor Jordan.
So I guess to clarify everything, what I'm going to make a motion for is anything 5 acres or less is 14 acres and everything.
4 inches.
Inches.
Over
14 inches.
And anything greater than 5 acres is 20 inches.
Got it.
And what was the mitigation? There's mitigation.
The mitigation for commercial is 20 inches and greater.
There's no mitigation.
And if we don't do that, there's no mitigation if we're 14 across the board.
Right.
14 is, the mitigation for 14 is only for residential.
All right, and none of this touches residential.
Correct.
Second with discussion.
Okay.
I just have a clarifying question.
Go ahead.
Okay, just to clarify, back to this aerial, what you just said. So if they're doing it for the 20 inches and greater, they're allowed to do the aerial. If we made it 14, they would not be allowed to do the aerial. Would that be an accurate statement?
Well, we do talk about aerials being permitted, but yes, they can still do the aerial even if you do the 14 inches. We allow sampling.
Okay.
Because we learned that was a effective tool for those larger projects.
Okay.
And I think the further clarification is that strike through that we talked about
All
earlier.
that, yeah, that's included, right?
Well, I like the, with the discussion, and we'll move forward. I like the fact that 20 inches mitigated.
Yes.
I don't like the fact that all 14 is not mitigated. So I think that there's something to be said for that. Allows for mitigation where if we go the other direction, there's no mitigation. And it stays away from residential. None of this applies there.
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion from Vice Mayor Jordan. I have a second from Member Stoker with discussion. Are we done with discussion? I see no others. Roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Robinson? Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes. Motion passes. City Manager.
On to old business. We're all the way up to 11A at this point. This is advisability amending the conditional use permit requirements for height in Urban Village UV zoning district. On February 8th, 2022, City Council directed staff to draft a report highlighting City Council's discussion relating to amending the height limitations for Urban Village zoning district. Specifically, the council requested that staff provide options allowing council to review and make additional changes to the draft text amendment prior to publishing an ordinance. Staff has developed options that the applicant can propose alternatives for council's consideration, in addition to a required setback for buildings over 60 feet, providing that all the buildings over 60 feet shall be set back a distance from the property line equal to the building height, and the applicant shall provide at least one incentive in order to increase height above 60 feet. So Ms. Bisaka is here to help clarify this advisability that will bring you back an ordinance, or the CUP, I'm sorry.
Ms. Busaka?
Yes,
you want to do another report?
If you'd like, but at the last meeting, council said that they liked the concept of conditional use permits and they liked incentives. They also identified that they liked the idea of a setback where there was no setback in Urban Village. So what we've done is say you're required to do a setback. 60-foot building would have to have a 60-foot setback from the property line. And in addition to that, one other incentive, and we provided you with a list here. These lists, this may not be the entire list. We could certainly advertise an ordinance that would allow you to put other incentives as perhaps you think about those as we move forward. But that's basically all we need to make sure is that you still want to do a conditional use permit. You still like the idea of the setback and then incentives.
Member Nelson.
I like the incentives, and I like the idea of the setback. But I would say Personally, I would like to see us say, do an incentive of A, B, C, E, and D. So it would be 2 incentives. So one of the incentives would be for the electric charging stations. And for those of us who watch the Super Bowl, yeah, you notice that all the car commercials were electric. So I think that's something we need to look at. So I would like to see us require D and then ask them to choose one other. Yeah.
Okay. Any other council? Anything from staff? We good? Call the cards, please.
Jesse Wright,
That's fine. We can see him. I can see him anyway. That's good. Ms. Nelson might need to step up. Hey, go ahead.
Good evening, Honorable. I'm Jesse Wright, 3550 South Washington Avenue in Titusville. Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and the member of the City Council. I've given this to the clerk to pass it out, and I don't know if she has or not. But we have basically 3 projects into one with 3 lenders and 3 sets of requirements in this project. The first phase is going to run close to about 115 million, and I have the numbers to show. And the second phase, which is going to be the medical and the commercial, is going to be close to about 25 million. And the third phase will be the hotel, the Hilton Hotel, that would be close to about 30 million. So we need to debt service about close to about 170 million for the whole project. For the record, as I mentioned this before, Titus Landing received close to about 6.5 million, and we were not going to be receiving any incentive from the city, the way it looks right now. We are taking to sacrifice the height, and we are looking for getting 75 feet steel to make this project go with 25% open space. We are meeting the minimum requirement of about 1,051 parking requirements. We have scrapped the building of the Hilton Hotel because to be able to save cost, to be able to do the first phase, and then do the Hilton and the medical portion towards the end. To place the Hilton, we had to cut back close to about 3,000 square feet from the footprint, and from 14,000, we dropped down to about 11,000. We had to go 2-story on the commercial portion. If I may explain where that is, would that take away time from me, or?
Go ahead, and when the time runs out, we'll see if we want to extend it. TV can't hear you. Paul, do you want to extend time? By how much? 3 minutes. Yes, go.
Yeah.
3.
And so that is what's going to happen. To do the residential. So basically on this one here, we're talking about the residential portion, which is the senior living, the apartment, and the 2 shell for the restaurant, this portion right here. and the hotel and the commercial would be that. The reason would be that once this is built, we can have the GC to do the hotel, and once the tenants completely have moved out to the retail section, we can do the commercial portion. May I approach the... On the incentive, we have done the shading study. We've already passed it out. The shading does not really obstruct anybody's view in any of the neighbors or the businesses. We've done that. I passed it out. We will be adding charging stations, and we'll let you use the first one, the grand opening.
I will be there.
We will be putting at least between 2 to 4 charging stations for every building, so it'll be a total of about 10 to 12. And per what the recommendation from the staff, we are also going to be putting shades in the project. And but we cannot really be confined with 20% in every single building. And the reason is, if we were to do that, if we were to put 20% into the building G, there's nobody going to be able to rent that. At the same time, right next door, we have nearly 50% retail. The senior living has got about 100% retail on the first floor, 25,000 square feet. So we are basically requesting, by the way, we had Mr. Slusher had a community meeting with about several people that no one showed up to discuss the environmental portion of the trees and so on. We are hereby requesting that the City Council uses its authority to make the following changes. A maximum allowable height of 75 feet with no CUP and allowing the CUP to be administrative, and no further changes to the existing or requests for the plans beyond what has already been submitted and approved on October 12th. I have 5 speakers with Rodney, Lisa, Carol, Howard, and William. And if we get the height, we can put a stand on top of the 75-foot. He can show all his signs, and it'll be more visible. That's what I'm recommending.
Okay, thank you.
I can answer any questions.
I do have a question up here, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, and actually it's not for you, it's for Peggy. And when we do CUPs, it's for a specific project, correct?
What we're doing now is changing the code that would require a CUP for every urban village.
Right.
And then the individual project would come in and it would be reviewed individually, yes, sir.
Okay, so for this project, if it didn't go through, then whomever would take it over would have to come and request a CUP. Right. If this
No, the CUP would run with the property for, I think CUPs expire after 4 years.
Okay, so once a property owner gets a CUP, if he sells the property, the second person
Correct.
could have
Yes,
a
sir,
CUP.
that's right.
Okay. All right, that's what I need. Thanks.
I have a question. It seems like the height issue has changed a lot. It seems like we've had 55, 60, 65, 75. We keep going up. And as many times, and I definitely want to support the project. I think that I've heard that from council. It would be an outstanding thing to have as opposed to what we have there now. But I'm never quite sure what the game plan is.
May I answer
Absolutely.
the question? I spoke with the fire marshal today. I had a meeting with him today, and I thought he was going to be here. My problem, Mr. Mayor, is that so far the city considers the top floor that is not going to be occupied, people are going to be sleeping in there, as a habitable floor. And we need to have our observation deck for seniors, for the apartment, and also for the hotel. So we are fine if we can stay within 75 feet so we can have our observation deck. Because of right now, the observation deck will be around 12 feet on top.
So when you where did 75 feet come from? Because that's a new one. And when we spoke last time, I think it was 65.
But with all due respect, the master plan that we submitted asked for 80 to 90 feet.
There's another one. I guess what I'm looking for ultimately is at some point when we come back, we're staying the same. We've got a plan. We're moving forward with the plan because in coaching terms, we get a game plan and we go to it. It seems like the game plan is changing a lot. And I'm just saying from sitting over here, it seems like things change sometimes. And I'm just saying, I want to support, but I got to know what the plan is.
75 feet happens to be a mid-rise. And we need to have the observation that is a selling point, really. I mean, for the seniors, for the apartments, residents, and also for the hotel. So each floor, we've already sacrificed the parking garage to be able to, to make the minimum requirements. And so since we've changed it, we had to go up on the second floor on the commercial portion in order to comply. So, I mean, we're sacrificing quite a bit by also giving the incentive that the staff has recommended.
And back at you, in all seriousness, and not trying to be smart, but in all due respect, last time you were here, I think it was 65. And then it was 75. And I'm not really talking about the height because that's not my number one concern. My concern is for me that there's a consistency. And when we come back, it's like, okay, we've done this and now we want to do this. That's what I'm looking for. I want to support the project, rest assured. I just have some concerns about it seems to change on me.
I don't really remember saying that I asked for 65 last time.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that, but we've
I will
always
just
asked
say
for
this,
75.
and the project has changed, has it not?
Yes, it has.
Okay,
Quite a
I'm
bit,
not
yes.
opposed to that. I'm
Yes,
just saying
yes.
that at some point, for us to sit up here and get behind the project, we got to kind of know what it is, and it stays that way.
If it stays at
Gotcha.
75, it won't change. And I can assure you this, if it comes to 72 or it comes to 70, I mean, in reality, we want to be at the low mid-rise. I mean, at the mid-rise, not a high-rise.
All right, so it gets to 120. I know we're going to, no. All right, we're good. Let's see, Member Robinson.
Yeah, did I hear that in this is that we want, if there's a conditional use permit, that we leave that responsibility on Peggy to make that decision?
No, sir. What you're considering tonight is changing the requirements for the zoning category of urban village throughout. And there's three areas in the city that have that zoning category.
What I think I heard Mr. Wright say is that he doesn't want to go through the public hearing process again and go through a conditional use permit. He wants the maximum height to be 75 feet without a conditional use permit. He also would like, the code requires a maximum allowable height is 50 feet unless the ground floor of a residential and commercial mixed-use building is utilized as retail space. Mr. Wright does not want that either because he can't put 100% retail in all of his buildings on the bottom floor. So he would like to simply have all of these be the code changed so that there are no additional public hearings required.
Okay.
May I say something, Mayor?
Hold on that. I'm going to go here, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, okay. That made a lot of sense what you just said. There's only 3 properties that we're talking about, and we've sent this information to the 3 owners, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the rationale for the commercial on the first floor was what?
As part of the US 1 corridor study, they wanted to see a mixed-use development. And so it was an incentive for additional height. They at the time that plan was developed, there was a lot of concern about additional height, and the community felt that they ought to be getting something for the additional height. And they felt that a mixed use with retail on the bottom would be an excellent trade-off.
But was there any thought about the commercial being a few feet away from the residential, and that would count?
I didn't see any language, and I know why there's why there's no setbacks. I know that in a much more urban area, that is, it's called activating the street, and you have people that are out there. Right. It's like going to New York City, after the theater, there's lots of things going on. And that's because all the uses are right there along the street.
Right.
So I understand why there's no setback for urban village, but the trade-off for height is clearly called for in that US 1 corridor. And so that's where the incentives come in or the additional setbacks come in. They said we need to have some incentive for the additional height over 50 feet, was consistent with that plan.
Okay, so if we've got the CUP, then the request is going to be for this specific case to not have the commercial on the bottom.
Well, what I would do, if that sounds like something that council would like to discuss, we can certainly amend that particular requirement, and as part of the conditional use permit, that could be negotiated.
Yeah, because that, to me, I'm going back to my word again, reasonableness. It just seems like if you're going to have commercial not too far away from a residential, that would take care of the requirement from the public to have commercial with residential instead of it being on the bottom, especially. You know, I'm not understanding the 75 feet because I know we had to get a CUP.
I can explain the 75 feet. I think that the reason 75 feet is because at 75 feet, the standards are different under the fire code. So if you go to 74.9 feet, you're going to have one set of standards under the fire code. Once you get to 75 feet, the standards are increased, and I'm sure it's much more expensive to build at that standard.
Yeah, but I think the other challenge is when we want the public to be involved in what's going on, if we don't have the CUP, I guess we have to make sure what our standard is. If the standard's going to be 50 feet, 75 feet, what reaction will that be with the public if they don't get to say anything about it, correct?
Yes, sir. And I, as I said at that first meeting, I believe that especially in this community, height is a community standard.
Right. So
and there's been a lot of interest in this community about height.
But the mitigation that we're doing for the height was to put commercial on the bottom.
Yes, sir. That was one of the mitigations.
But it's got to be reasonable to think that if you're going to have commercial a few feet away from that residential, it takes care of that. And to have a CUP to say, hey, can I put my retail 20 feet away from the residential and go to 75 feet? I mean, that's a lot of waste. I mean, the public is going to come and say, no, we don't want you to do that. We want you to put it underneath and it's 20 feet away from where you're going to put commercial. To me, that's a waste of a lot of time and money in my mind, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to battle the CUP because I want the public to have a right to say, but if the CUP is only going to say, I'm going to move my commercial 20 feet away.
So let's work like we're going to phase a project. So let's say I build my residential and then I choose not to do my commercial. So if I'm phasing a project, and let's say I do residential first, and so I want to do my residential, and then whoops, I changed my mind, or the conditions of the market aren't right. So I know the separate 20 feet away commercial thing, I'm going to choose not to do it now.
I'd like to respond to that if that's okay.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, I don't think you need to respond to it. It makes sense what you say. And that's why we need a CUP.
Well, no, and I think that's why the citizens included that in their language in the corridor study initially, was to make sure that if you are going to do that height, that the commercial will be part of that particular build. That's my opinion. I could be wrong.
No, I was trying to get to the point where if the CUP is going to be required because he's doing a height that is more than 50 feet, mitigation is put thing under here, and he's going to say, and I'm only thinking three properties, so I'm going specific, even though we're only supposed to be talking about this ordinance. He's going to say, I'm going to build this commercial and this residential at the same time. I don't want to do that. What we're saying is they only start with phase one, which is residential, and things change doing it. So the public has lost out on the requirement that Right. Yeah. Okay.
May I respond?
Give me 20 seconds of response because I want to hear. Go.
We have 25,000 square feet under the senior living. And this project, Mr. Laris, is basically a combination of three separate portions.
Yes, sir. I was asked a question.
Okay.
The question was
go ahead.
clarify what the quarter
We
said.
have,
Just talk to me.
okay, we have tenants right now on the second phase after we demo the first phase of the mall that need to move somewhere. And they've been promised that they're going to be moving into the retail section of the senior living. So this notion of me not building the rest is ridiculous. I'm sorry I have to say that. I'm in this for the whole entire project.
And I haven't said you weren't. I don't think anybody said you weren't. I think all we were saying is we're asking, I think Vice Mayor is just asking some questions about what's the CUP do if take your name out of it, if anybody goes another direction, what's it do? So don't take it that way.
And as a reminder, this is not specific to Mr. Wright's property.
That's right, absolutely.
This is about 3 properties that have the UV.
There's just
zoning.
one more thing on the CUP, Mr. Mayor. The CUP, in my opinion, is being done to get the public to come out and, of course, give oppositions and for it and so on and so forth. We've done a shading study that this does not affect anyone in the area in no way, shape, or form. And so, I mean, in reality, there is a building, and I know I'm still not understanding, there's a 10-story building right across the street. Whether it built or it didn't build, it was a mistake, it's there. It is still there across the street. So
All right, I got to
don't
move
know
on to
why
the next one. So thank you very much. You've given us a lot of information.
5 people, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go
Rodney.
ahead. Well, she's going to call the cards. All right, go ahead.
Rodney Honeycutt.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Rodney Honeycutt, 3700 South Washington Avenue in Titusville. It's a good project. We discussed the reasons, eyesore, landscape, stormwater, everything. At the last meeting, Mr. Wright was talking 74 feet 9 inches. I mean, the conversation went everywhere, and that might be why we think it was different, but that's what he was discussing. Commercial on the first floor is difficult to finance, I'm sure. It's not when you get in a dense area, but it is when it's in an area that's not tried. I know it's difficult. And this is not a dense project. A dense project is such as the county would allow in a redevelopment project in Merritt Island of 50 units per acre. I mean, this is not a dense project, and that makes it difficult to finance. I'm asking you to support Mr. Wright in his request, and so that this project can be constructed and we can get rid of the eyesore and get some landscaping and stormwater. Any questions?
Let me ask you the same question I asked Mr. Wright, and it seems as though, and you're that kind of guy that draws this and draws that, are there more changes coming? And at one point, I know it may not have been last week, we've had a lot of meetings, and we've seen the presentation a lot of times. But it does seem like some heights have changed, and it does seem like some things have changed. All I'm asking for is a confidence that we're going to go forward with a plan and stay with the plan and not, we're not going to have this, we're not going to have that. We decided against that. We're not going to have the Hilton. We are going to have the Hilton. So what do you think about that?
So my explanation for what has happened is the master plan was approved with heights up to 80 and 90 feet. And so when it was discovered that there had to be a conditional use permit and it was understood that over 50 feet, there would have to be a CUP. It mentioned that in the master plan. What was a surprise was it said you have 50% of open space consisting of native lands and native species. And so Mr. Wright was trying to negotiate, and I think in doing that, he also found out there was an advantage to going under 75 feet. And so that's how that changed. And so that also kind of dominoed into other changes on the site, because once you reduce the height, you had to get some more space somewhere else for parking because you needed the building, and so that caused some changes. Are there going to be more changes? I don't know. I don't call the shots.
Okay, stop the clock, please. Vice Mayor.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay, Member Stokel.
Yeah, so that's where I'm confused. If you guys were already aware that there was going to be a CUP, why are we now discussing saying we don't want to do a CUP when it was already understood at the approval of the master plan that there would need to be a CUP?
Because the time is killing us. It's already, October when it was approved, and we submitted for the CUP, and Mr. Wright did, and found out that there were the code required things that we weren't aware of. I don't even think staff was aware of it. They can speak to that. I can't. And so it's drug out. And so to go to a CUP is another 90 days, and prices are escalating, and it's a project disaster.
So he did submit for a CUP, and did it not meet the criteria for it, or what happened with the submittal of the CUP already?
I can be corrected, but I think what happened is the comment came back first about the shading study,
Okay.
and then secondly about the 50% open space.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor, one more time.
Yeah, and I remember that because I said 50% of the
Yeah,
project.
I remember that too. Yep.
That was way too much, and that's how
Yep.
we ended up with all of this.
Good.
I'm sorry, we really need to stay focused on this ordinance to make sure we're dealing with just this. Even though we have a project over here, we just need to stay and try to figure this out.
Well, let me just say this. If I have the opportunity with the people here of questions that I've had for a while, I'm gonna ask them. My big concern is I want to support the project, but I'm not sure it's staying the same. So I'm not sure what I'm supporting sometimes. So I will have that right to say, what are we doing? And I think we got that. Remember, got that right. All right. I see no more questions. Rodney, it's always great to hear from you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Lisa McCotter.
Stay here.
Good evening, Lisa McCotter, Country Club Drive. I filed the CUP myself. So yes, we did know going into this that there would be the height issue, but it's like Rodney said, that was scheduled, and then this ordinance came up. We became aware of the ordinance, which, it extend from 20% up to 50% of the property. And so that's how all this came about, and it has been, the extension of time. I mean, this is the third council we've been to. So what is that? 6 weeks? This is the third council in talking about this specific 50% of the property in the natural state. So I would ask that a decision be made so that we could move forward with the height. And I will say that the height that the property plan has been tweaked, not really changed. And a lot of that has to do with, you put something in your plan and then something else comes up, like Mr. Wright was mentioning about the adding the observation decks on not just the hotel, but the living space. Well, then then the fire marshal has something to say about that. And so things have to be adjusted. And I know that that's true of every project that's going on. Things get adjusted and tweaked. And I think that's what's happening here. So I don't think it's really that it's been changed. I would say tweaked is a better definition.
Okay, we'll go with that.
All right. Any questions?
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, it's not a question for you. You brought up something, so I've got to ask I'm staying focused, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. I even forget what I was going to ask. I'm hearing her say that, of course we had a lot of stuff going on, but you're just asking for advisability. So right now, the ordinance that's up now is what they have to live with, correct?
Yes,
So
sir.
any decision we make tonight, the only decision you're asking us to make tonight is to give you advisability in what we want to do.
Yes, sir, and then we'll advertise an ordinance and bring it back.
Right. So the timeline, I mean, there's nothing this council can do unless you want to just follow the ordinance that we have in place today. That's just fact. So I'm not sure, you can't speed up anything. I mean, we can't do anything as a council, even as the mayor, to say, no, we're not going to worry about a CUP. You go ahead and do your thing and get this over with. So
No?
no, you can't do that. So I just want you to know that this is only an advisability tonight, and what the ordinance is as it stands today is that you have to go and do a CUP and then hope for the best to get what you want. We do have a concern. I think the council said that 50% was just way too much, but I guess you can do that under the CUP approval process to say, no, you don't have to. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We got direction from council that condition should be removed.
Right, exactly.
As part of the ordinance, yes,
Right.
sir.
So you can do that, but it's still going to take some.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next card, please.
William, Eessel.
William Castle, 1400 Milton Street. They already spoke on a lot of the subjects that pretty much matter, but I do want to remind you guys that we are open to working with you on the incentives and that we are going above and beyond for the environment when it comes to this project. Over 100 trees, stormwater, the increased shade from a 75-foot building actually decreases the temperature of the area around it, which helps a lot with outdoor activity, which is, one of the things you want to see with open space usage. As far as the ordinance goes, I mean, really what it comes down to is really just getting rid of that CUP for the 75 feet requirement for us to make this feasible. And I mean, if there was another way, if there was a way we could do the ordinance and the CUP at the same time, so that way we only came to one set of meetings, then that would also be acceptable. It's that time frame of having to do the ordinance, then adding an additional 90 days on top of that to do the CUP, if that makes sense. Because right now, just from October to here, I mean, that's a 12 to 15% increase in cost for us. In, 6-7 months, that's going to be astronomical at that rate. It definitely kind of takes away from the ability of what we're able to do with this project, and especially what we want to give back to the city. So.
Member Stokel.
Yeah. Thank you, William. I think this is a question for staff. I think that we discussed this at our last meeting, that we can't really do a CUP on an ordinance that doesn't exist yet. So, and I hear you. I think all of us up here, we don't like to take a lot of time on things, if you can't tell. So we like to do things very efficiently and as fast as we possibly can. I think the problem is, as the Vice Mayor alluded to, it's go by what we currently have or kind of wait until we can make those changes, unfortunately. But I definitely hear you.
Yeah, and making the changes is what we're here for. So definitely understand the wait time on that. So.
Yeah, and I can't tell you if I had a magic mayor wand or something.
Yeah.
I'd say, okay, let's go. Start building whatever. I want this thing to go, but the steps seem to get in the way. Go ahead.
So Peggy, can we put it on the same agenda so we do the legislative portion and then we turn around and do the CUP after?
We don't have criteria yet to know how to review
That's
it.
what we said before.
So you make a final
We
decision.
can't do a CUP off of something we haven't passed yet.
Unless we assume that we're going to pass it.
Yes, there are. My attorney is reminding me how assume can turn ugly.
Oh, okay.
All right, I see no more questions. Thank you. For me, and I know it's very elementary, but my advisement is, and I go back to the lady with the nursery on Highway 50, it's that kind of situation. What can we do to make this go as fast as we can make it go? I think that we're all on that boat, but we got the steps we've got to take. And it doesn't really seem that either one of them shortens the length. And if there is one that's shorter, I'm for it.
Well, if you reduce the CUP, as Mr. Wright said, then that's 2 weeks, 4 weeks less time because he doesn't have to come back. He just has to wait for the code to be amended. But then there's no public input, and whatever you decide is what's going to happen. There's not going to be any negotiations. There's not going to be any options. It's whatever you tell them to do, they have to do.
Well, the city manager will make that decision. Next card, please.
Howard Graham.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you? I'm Howard Graham. I live here in Titusville. We've been here almost 15 years. We love living here. We live directly across the street from the Sears Mall. My family and I do mission work. That's one of the things we do. We have a small family business here. It's hard to come home and see property that reminds me of places in Mexico City or places in South Africa, in some of these areas that we go to. And when we heard of a gentleman that wanted to come in and rip that mall down and build something beautiful, I actually came to the first meeting when he was approved. And I went home and told the whole community where we live that we've got a new mall coming in. The excitement and the thrill of everybody going on. When I heard that the wheels were moving, everything was proceeding, or moving along here, then I heard that there was a wrench thrown into the gears here with the height compliance. And everybody that I talk to in our community that I'm going to see every single day of my life out my front door there, the higher the better is what people are saying. When I talk to neighbors, when I talk to on both sides of us down the road, it doesn't matter on the height. Is it going to block the view of South Hopkins? That's not the problem there. To have something new, have something fresh, and for this man to go through, in listening to some of the others, for them to go through the time constraints, this is a different age we live in now, post-COVID. And for, in my business, I've had 300% and 400% increases in our supplies. It's gone crazy. I know it's probably cost this man millions of dollars because of the changes that have come up. This is fourth down and 1. I want to see him cross that line, and I want to see him hit the goal line and make it. And if you all, as a city council, can do some creative thinking, some creative ways to make it go in favor of this man so that he can get this project done as soon as possible. Because the longer it goes, the harder it gets, the more costly it gets. And I don't want to see the potential of having to look at that mall any longer than we do. So that's, I'm in support of the mall being built at the request of what this gentleman for.
And that's why we voted yes when we voted yes, and that's why
Yes.
we're trying to wave the magic hammer and come up with something.
Well, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it.
Makes noise, that's all I know to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, I appreciate the support and the efforts that are going on. I really do. Thank you. Member Stokoe, excuse me. Member Stokoe.
Which street do you live on?
We live right on South Washington. So
Okay. US 1
on
area.
US 1, where Ace is at.
Yep.
And we live right across the street there. Everybody thinks they're condos, but they're patio homes.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, the one-story ones.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next card, please.
Carol Stanton.
You've already been talking out there, so you know.
Okay. Carol Stanton, 6935 Rear Edge Drive. After all, hearing all this, I don't know, I met Mr. Wright when he first came to Titusville. And then just yesterday, I happened to drop in to ask him what was happening, because I just hope I live long enough to see this thing come to fruition. That mall, we all know it's an eyesore, and I have to go by there every Monday because we meet to get our Meals on Wheels meals to take to the elderly, and that's where we happen to be meeting. We used to meet at Tire Kingdom. So I'm there around there a lot. And so I've been very excited. And I shop at Bell's and I love the antique mall. And I've been going to Tire Kingdom for 40 years. So, you know, I'm looking forward to having a new look to that area. And of course, the potholes, I probably had to have my car realigned many times because I'm over there so much. But anyway, my husband was a dentist here for 30 years and then got cancer, and he's retired and doing well. I know you because you're a friend of Amy Bowen, my neighbor. And so anyway, we've been here 42 years, and I'm tired of looking at that. I hope that you'll let him do what he, you know, has asked, the 75 feet. And I have a daughter. I'm proud of her. She's a Harvard lawyer. She's lived in D.C. and she's lived in, she just moved to Milwaukee. And she always lives in a high rise. And the way these places are, and I can just see Mr. Wright wanted the older people not to be isolated, but have, you know, families around. I suggested to him that he put a dog run. My daughter has a dog, and lots of more dogs since COVID because the people were so isolated, they didn't go to work. And my daughter's made so many friends on the 9th floor of her 40-story condo in Milwaukee. All glass. You walk in and the whole wall is glass with viewing Lake Michigan. So anyway, in the bigger, the way they build things now is just so much more attractive. Everything is, you know, perfect, and I look forward to seeing something there that, but we need a dog run. Because that's where the older people and the younger people can mingle and get to know each other. And that's happened with my daughter in both the places she's lived. And I also think that it's, I know you're approving of it. I just want you to get all these things worked out. You know, don't open a can of worms. I've heard you say that twice. And my husband is for it as well, you know. But as you get older, you don't want to have to drive, and you want to have everything around you. I can just see a dental office there, you know.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Get it approved and get it done. I'll let him
Next card.
Tony Sheffalo.
Oh.
Tony Sheffalo, the historic Norwood House. I guess I'm one of the only people in town who worries about height in the town, the scale of the way things look. And I've been looking at Titusville a lot differently since I've been a member of the Titusville Historic Preservation Board. I'm not a historian like Roz Foster, but I am a person who studies history and who loves older buildings and houses and want to push for rehab and renovation of existing structures around town. I'm not opposed to this development. I'm opposed to wanting to exceed the height. You're going to make an exception. You made an exception for the condos over by the bridge, and you made an exception for Woody Rice's project across from the marina. Now you're going to make an exception here, and then you're going to make an exception over there, and then we'll make a little exception. And before you know it, we're going to be like, where was it the daughter lives that has a 40-story condo? People don't come to Titusville to live that high. They would go to Miami or Tampa if they want to, where there's plenty of tall buildings. I think we need to remember that there are a lot of people who respect the perspective and the overall scale of the way Titusville is. It's a moving forward place because of our space adventure, but it's a place that's rooted in low Florida history. I mean, come on, we're surrounded by swamps and wetlands, and you don't build real high in those places. You stay low and hug the ground. And I just want you to remember perspective and scale across town as you make your decisions.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Dan Johnston.
Stan Johnston. You know that I'm against high-rise buildings, and that's when I came here. And I see other communities like Cocoa and some other places that have a lot of low-rise. And that this community, when I came here, was touted as this is a low-rise community. So that was something attractive. It still is attractive to me, but it's not attractive to people who want to build high-rises. So I've opposed high-rises repeatedly. I guess we don't have a quorum now. Do we stop?
We have a quorum.
Yeah, three's a
Three's a
quorum?
quorum.
Okay. I expect you're going to pass it around, but I'm concerned that Mr. Wright says it doesn't affect anyone. Well, I don't think that's true. And I disagree with the higher the better. I don't agree with that. I mean, you block off my view of the sky for 200 miles or so. I feel like that's an effect. It is an effect. So you just don't have the open, and that's what we're losing. We're losing more and more. So it's going to turn into Little Miami on your progress is towards Little Miami. That's what the city of Titusville is going to be, and I'm against it. I'm still against it, and I'll certainly, when time comes, I'll certainly encourage other people to vote against you because I don't like it. And there's a lot of other people, old people, that will vote against you, and I hope they will. So this is not what Mr. Wright said. This will be not make it. This is what Mr. Jordan said. I believe this is an advisability. It's not advisability that says that you're going to agree with the next thing, and that's ordinance. I don't think it's appropriate to have these people appear as the applicant. In other words, applicant for what? An ordinance change? Do we do that? Maybe we do. But it seems like we're going further than what we should as far as giving special attention to somebody who bought a property with regulations in which they didn't understand the regulations. So I'm against it, and I do not want it further made any higher. I want it to go by the regulations now. Do they have a CUP? To the CUP. But I don't look forward to any changes. Don't want any higher. Don't want it to go up 75 feet. So any questions? I don't think so. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Sarah didn't listen. Get it to Julian.
All right, let's go on. Next card.
We just received an additional card with for HD McWhite.
For what? Oh, come on. I thought they were telling me a number of songs. So what are we on? I thought, we leave what we're doing? Hey, how are you?
My name is HD McWhite. I've lived here back and forth in Tampa, Florida, and several other places. I go to church here, Foundation,
Yes, you do.
and we're pushing to do new things in the community, and we want to make change. And I understand that we have a status quo in Titusville, and we want things to stay the same, but we have to move forward. We're a forward-leaning place. We've had booms and busts and cycles. We're in a cycle right now where money is flowing here, where we're not having a brain drain. We're having people with expertise coming here. This place is shining now. And in this moment, we have to capture this moment and build better and to remove some of the old landmarks. And I believe in holding on and restoring the antiquity and the history that is here. But one of the things that could be removed is the eyesore that has a falling in roof, that people are not visiting anymore, that people that are here are leaving here to go other places because the services that they desire are not within our city. And we have everything but. And we need to take the comma out of the sentence.
Quiet, please.
We need to take the comma out of the sentence. I normally don't speak. I'm coming to learn and to be a part because I live here and I'm concerned here. Like you, my mother's 93. I take care of her right now. But there's things that need to change. And even as the city manager and the city attorney, I know it's uncomfortable because there's ordinances and things that we have here that are not aligned to the move and the change that we are now in. It's not coming, it's here. So it's going to push everyone to move and change. It pushes me to move and change. So it's not a, if it's going to be, it's here now. And you don't want to lose the moment. You don't want to lose the season. Because once it's gone and it goes to other places, we are positioned between Melbourne and Daytona and Orlando. And once upon a time, everyone came here. Those people came here, and now we go there. So I'm just asking to be mindful as we move forward that you're in a moment of movement anyway. So we need to move and maximize the moment while we have it, because after a while, it'll be gone.
Well said. Thank you very much. Next card. All right, so what we're looking to do is an advisement, and again, keeping it simple, my advisement is to whatever we can do to make it as fast as we can, which is what you've been trying to do all along, but I don't know that we have a lot of options. Expedite, but already said it. Member Stokel, go ahead.
Yeah, Peggy, if you can just kind of reiterate what you might need from us. I think that we talked about before, we all want the CUP and the incentive portion of it. So with the additional height, I think we all agreed that 50% open space is too much. So we wanted to see that lowered. And then the incentives, I think that looking at the list, I know Member Nelson had mentioned like the charging stations and then maybe some options to be able to pick from the list. That's kind of where I'm at.
And the only other thing that I would say is that I've heard some discussion tonight about reducing the amount of mixed use on the bottom, not necessarily eliminating it, but making sure that that there's not necessarily 100% mixed use on the bottom of every building. That was at least a consideration.
You want to clarify? Like, what do you, like, I guess what, are you needing a percentage?
No, I don't need a percentage. I just
some flexibility?
Yeah, I will just, I can put that in the
Okay.
ordinance, and then when you see the words, you can decide if you like them or not.
Okay, no, that's fine with me.
Okay.
I tend to lean towards whatever the developer is thinking. I mean, I really do. Not that developer, any developer. When he was saying that earlier, that I was, and we were talking about, he couldn't do this, he couldn't have the bottom floor of this. I don't know. It's like, if that's what, whatever's going to be successful for them is what they're going to want to do. I don't want to dictate what percentage they have to do. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I guess the challenge with what you just said is the fact that we've got an ordinance that says this is what you have to do.
Right. And
That's
I
our
get that.
challenge,
But if we don't, if that slows it down and all that stuff, but if asked, what do I want on the bottom? I'm not building it. I'm for whatever they want.
No, I'm in agreement. I'm just saying that our ordinance right now says this, so we have to do this. So I do have a question about the first portion. If we build, typically this height 75 feet, and he has to be 75 feet.
That's what
setback from
that's what
every
the staff
location.
is suggesting at this moment.
That's
Yeah.
and the reason for that is
Well, because there are currently no setbacks, and there was concerns expressed last meeting about having those tall buildings right up against the street.
And I think you said, and I asked the question before, you can use that 75 feet for parking?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And you have to put a 20-foot buffer up, and so that would be a couple of rows of parking.
Sure. And then the incentive for doing that, I think I heard say that she would like to see a certain one of these as part of the incentive to allow for the high height. All right, with that, I'm in agreement with all of that for sure. It's kind of hard for me to get away from the CUP, except for the fact that I think the spirit of the requirement was that we wanted to make sure there was a place for people commercially in a development. But I also heard the city managers say, you can do this phase, but something happens in the other space. In my mind, you gotta have something there that says, okay, if we give you this, you have to have commercial space within 50 feet of, within that or 50 feet of that, and that's the only way you, just to stay with the spirit of we were looking for. Does that make sense? Of course it makes sense. I said it right.
After 9:30 though.
It is after 9:30. I'm losing my mind. So,
You good?
I think I am. So CUP, there's nothing else we can do, just to clarify, to help this project out right now, except to get this ordinance in place. If he wants to do anything as far as his project is concerned, he has to apply
Exactly.
to get exactly what
Exactly.
maybe we're seeing right now.
If he wants to go above 60 feet. But if, at this point, if he wants to go above 50 feet, he has to do that commercial on the bottom, which he's also asked for some flexibility for.
Right. So 50 feet, whatever you want.
All right, Member Stokel.
Yep, I just wanted to clarify because Vice Mayor reminded me of it. I do agree with the setbacks. Again, I think as Ms. Busaka was saying, urban village, typically you're going to be in that really small, confined, like kind of downtown feel, and that's not what the surrounding property is. So I tend to agree with the setback aspect as well.
So you have enough? We've given a lot.
I do. I have enough to get an ordinance to you and advertised, and then it'll be your job to tell me this.
Yeah, I think we just, what we've been wanting to do all along, expedite it. And he makes the decisions. Are we good?
Yes, I'm good.
All right, Council, anything else on that one?
I think there was a question.
25. And one of the incentives could be an increase in open space.
That's good.
That was one of the incentives that we put down that you could choose from.
I like that. All right, good. Mr. Wright, I appreciate you being here as often as you are. I'll bring you some water next time or something, but, yeah, you know what? Hurry, you got 1 minute, only because it's a good summary. We've been all over the place, but give us a summary.
You asked about whether there's going to be any more changes. The answer is absolutely no. That's
Thank
all
you
I'm
very
gonna
much.
say. And if
I
I can get
appreciate
to
it.
75 feet and 25%
I like
again,
what
charging
I see
stations
there.
and all that.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Because you brought that up, you have no challenge now. If you were to get to 75 feet, I noticed you put in this thing that we could stop this whole thing if you couldn't get to 75 feet. So you don't have a problem with getting your financing for this. That's correct.
I'll be meeting with my lenders on Friday.
You got, it's a good day. Let's go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Yes, Council, and we'd like to go ahead and do a quick agenda adjustment. I'd like to move 12B to now, which is the quasi judicial for Verona Village D. And we do have the Mylar present. We have the applicant here. I'd like to, since we got one guy, I think it would be prudent to do it this time, and we will need a vote for that.
Quasi judicial.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
We need a motion to do that now. So let me have I got a motion from Vice Mayor, a second from Member Nelson. All those in favor say yes. Opposed? Moved.
So on to item 12B, which is Verona Village D, final plat. And this item is quasi judicial. So Richard will read you the quasi judicial procedures prior to us doing the item.
During the public hearing portion of this meeting on quasi judicial, anyone wishing to speak must first sign a public hearing agenda card and sign the oath contained thereon. These cards are located on the table at the entrance to the chamber. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents that you desire for the city council to consider, they must be submitted into evidence and will be retained by the city. Please submit such exhibits to the city clerk. City clerk, of all persons wishing to speak before the city council, sign an oath card swearing to tell the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth. Staff and applicant have all witnesses that intend to speak sign an oath card swearing to tell the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth. Have an applicant. If there's anyone present who has not signed an oath card that wishes to speak on a quasi-judicial item, please submit a card to the clerk at this time.
City clerk of all agenda items been properly advertised. In the event that a council member has received an ex parte communication, either verbal or written, outside of this hearing, the council member shall disclose the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place and the subject of the communication, including all opinions or facts discussed. Any written communication must be disclosed and made a part of the record. Also, in the event that a member has conducted an investigation or site visit or received any expert opinions regarding this quasi-judicial item, said visit or opinions shall be disclosed.
We disclose now?
Yes.
Because I think I said this last time and the time before that. I went out there for a site visit months ago. But yes, I've been out there.
I was going to say me too, probably 6-9 months ago.
Sure, and then the question would be, have you formed any opinions that you'd need disclosed based on your site visit?
Nope.
Yeah, I've seen it too, but no opinion's been formed.
Okay, with that, staff has reviewed the final plat for consistency with the comprehensive plan, land development regulations, and development agreements. Staff's findings are attached as part of your packet and recommends approval. Staff has reviewed the covenants and performance bonds and recommends acceptance. And again, I have to show you the Mylar that's here. So here it is. And staff's available to answer questions that you may have on this final plat.
All right, staff, anything you want to add to that? It's 10 o'clock, so there's no more adding. Applicant? I know, I thought so.
I only have one card. It's Mr. Johnston.
So what do I do? The applicant is in the restroom or did he leave?
No, we don't have an applicant.
It was sitting right there.
But he didn't put a card in.
Okay, no, but I'm just calling on him. If he's going to be here and wants to speak, kind of an odd time to go to the restroom. No. All right, we'll leave it at that. I'll move forward. We can come back, yes? Okay. That's out. Council, anything you want to add? No. Cards?
Dan Johnston.
Good time to leave. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. My name is Stan Johnston, and I'm going to give you my calling card. It says, professional civil engineering since 1976 and an expert witness in my area of expertise, which is civil engineering, an advocate of reasonable, fair, and truthful government. Purpose of my PE license is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. I'm going to give you this card.
Thank you.
There's a number of things I would like to mention before I mention some of my credentials is that I think that people should keep their word. Mr. Diesel, you should keep your word. In other words, in this case is that I made a point of order. Mrs. Wells, I want you to make a special note on this in your minutes, is that Mr. Diesel, you violated point of order in this case. In the council board, it appears to me, and that is the point of order was this. That my understanding is that it's been said and been in writing is that when you have an agenda item, you do first of all those who approve, then those who object. On the item number 11A, Mrs. Wells, regarding advisability, admitting conditional use permit requirements for height in urban village, all of you knew that I put up this card. Point of order. Mr. Diesel had said to me a number of times, it says that, listen, all you have to do is just say something to you, make something, and I would be recognized. I was not recognized.
First of all, let's stop the clock. You haven't talked about this topic at all, so you're going to keep it be a part of your word. When you sign up for something, you're going to talk about it, you're going to talk about something else. Did you just sign up for this?
I did sign up, and I'm an expert
witness. Are you keeping your word by talking about it?
Mr. Diesel, you're interrupting me. You're interrupting. I'm an expert witness. Do not interrupt me.
I can do that. Don't start calling me out unless you expect to get interrupted. You going to talk about this or you're not?
This is what I'm talking about. In other words, the conduct of this meeting. In other words, right now is that what you did is you disobeyed. In other words, you brought another speaker in who was for the project after we had those who objected to it. That's against the rules of order as far as has been presented to this council numerous times. You shouldn't have done it. You should have obeyed your own rules of order, and you didn't do it. Now, my credentials include licensed civil and also licensed in examined in civil and mechanical engineering, although I don't practice mechanical engineering. ASCE president, Cape Canaveral Ranch. A licensed surveyor. I'm not an active license since 1980. I taught 7 civil engineering technology courses at BCC. My dad was an engineer. I also, when I graduated, was Talbot Pi Engineering Honorary Society. I've been an employee of the county and the city. And when I was employed with the city, there's times they couldn't give me a raise because they said I couldn't get any more money. I was up the top, and they couldn't give me any more. When they gave people percentage raises, they couldn't even give me a raise then. So at that time, I was honored, and now I'm stuck with a situation which will have a number of people saying that they paid 7.
Time's up.
Ask for more time.
I see none. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other cards? Member Jordan? Vice Mayor?
I'm ready for this. I move that we approve the final plat and acceptance of covenants and performance bonds for Brownville.
Second.
I have a motion from Vice Mayor, a second from Member Nelson. Roll call vote.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Robinson?
Yeah.
Member Nelson? Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. City Manager.
On to item 12A. Grab your Mylar there. You got it. In accordance with Florida Statute 218.3912, the governing body of a municipality shall establish an auditor selection committee for the purpose of conducting the annual financial audits as required by the state statutes. The auditor selection committee must consist of at least 3 members. One of the audit selection committees must be a member of the governing body and shall serve as the chair of the committee. So what we want you to do tonight is we will come back with this is the establishment of it. We will come back with a resolution after you describe who and if which member of the governing body you would like to be on this selection committee, and describe the criteria of the other 2 members that you would like. Staff is suggesting that one of the that you don't limit it to the city of Titusville. So we could go to another municipality and ask for a financial CFO or a budget analyst or something like that from another city to serve on that committee. So we're suggesting not to limit it to Titusville, to allow it to be a Bard County.
I asked staff a question, but there's nobody there.
Sure, fire away.
So basically, we don't need a name right now.
That's correct. Or you could name somebody if you want.
All right. Now, I'm fine with doing a name, but at this point,
For your governing body, but we're going to take applications for the other members of this after we do the resolution, and you will nominate those people to be on the selection committee. So the process will be, if you want to name your governing body chairman now, that's fine. We'll put it in the resolution. And then the other 2 members, once you describe what you would like those committee members to be, we'll put out, allow people to apply for those positions, and then we'll come back to you with those recommendations.
so no matter what we say today, that no decision will be made.
That's correct. We're going to come back with a resolution for you.
Member Stokel.
Yeah, to the mayor's point, for clarification. So this process, if I remember correctly, will happen every 5 years?
Right now, it's every 5 years, yes.
So would it be better for in the resolution, so the resolution remains that we just say a member of and not name somebody specifically? That way the resolution will have to change in the future?
You can certainly do that.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I'm thinking we should say, okay, this is my prime time.
Right, I see that.
And again, it's not necessarily a 5-year mark.
Right.
It's every time you have to obtain a new auditor.
I just been trying to save us from having, or whoever's on council at that time, to go through the resolution process
Correct.
again.
And what I would suggest the resolution say is that their duties would end when the contract is executed.
Okay.
So sunshine, other reasons that
And
would be the term.
And then 5 years from now or whatever, we'll go through the process again.
Okay, so yeah.
But we're just establishing the resolution that we've not had in the past.
So we're just establishing the resolution there. That's a better understanding. Member Robinson? Okay, we're good. And so we're establishing the resolution. Do we need to do something with that? Say something about that?
I would like some criteria for the other two members, if you will.
Member Robinson again.
Yes, I think I like what you said about not necessarily being an in-house person because it looks cleaner. You know, I've been on audit boards, you know, so it looks cleaner if we could get borrow someone else from another municipality to help select or go through all of the audit firms that apply for. And so I think that criteria should be included in the resolution, that we try to seek someone outside of our municipality to sit on the board.
Sure, we could open up to Brevard County. They have a requirement that they have a general understanding of government financial accounting. If you want to clarify, you want someone who has served in that capacity, if at all possible, we could do that.
Yeah.
You know, for a local government as a financial director or something.
I agree.
Also, you can have advisors.
Mm-hmm.
So we recommend, I don't know if this was already said, but maybe your finance director or your purchasing contract administrator to serve in an advisory capacity.
Right. And the other one that I would suggest is, is someone maybe in-house to be that advisor to.
Yes, sir.
Yes, someone in-house.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's what.
But not be on the selection committee. What they'll do is describe
Correct.
the process. Yes, sir.
Right.
Member Stokel?
Are you looking for more criteria than what's in the summary? Or, okay.
I want you to
Okay.
say this is reasonable criteria
Gotcha,
that we
no.
can go for.
And that's, I really like it. The only other thing that potentially I would like to see, it looks like you have private and then local government, maybe add in in case they have a nonprofit financial, just so we're not excluding. But other than that, I think it's great.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I certainly was thinking about a CPA, but also need someone who definitely has experience doing this in the first place. And it could be, a private CPA firm who would volunteer a person to do that. I think that would be real smart. But the focus, because this is a governmental entity, they need to understand all the governmental, I guess GASP and all that stuff is in there, right?
Sure, that's why you probably would want to say you'd prefer or give preference to someone who has
Yeah.
experience in that field.
Exactly.
If you don't, of course, you would somebody who does have experience with accounting and audit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I agree with everything what they've said. I like the idea of it being somebody not associated with the city necessarily.
Yeah, that's
I
a
think
requirement
that
by the
cleans
state
it up.
statute.
You can't.
Yeah, so that's good. That's good. You done?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's really all we need to do with that, right?
Yep, that's plenty. We're now on to mayor and council reports.
Oh, we
Let's
did have
go,
a card.
I'm sorry,
We did
petitions and
have a
requests.
card on that one.
Oh, we had a card? But we didn't do anything. No.
That direction on that you voted on. You have a card, we'll take a card when it comes.
No, we'll take a card, but we didn't vote.
Well,
But you just said we voted. We didn't vote.
but as an agenda item.
So there's really no such thing as advisability. If it's
It
on the
is if you
agenda,
give direction,
what
isn't
color
it?
we want to paint the room, we got to have cards. Can you tell it's getting late?
Yeah.
Stanley, you ready?
I'm reading this, and it talks about choosing an auditor selection committee and also appointing a member of the current governing body to serve as the chairperson of this committee. I want you to understand is that I'm having some reservations about three people that were on there who were council members because of this. And I think you've seen this before. You've seen it many times. There's $70,000 spent on a document that doesn't exist. As promoted by Dr. Stokel, Robert Jordan, and Attorney Nelson. So I feel for that reason is that this fraud that continues today, now for over 3 years, is a substantial consideration is that neither of these three people should be selected as to serve as the chairperson of that committee. I don't want it to happen. I don't think it's right. I think all these three people have damaged me, my family, by this dishonesty and untruthfulness. It's not right, and it continues today. There is no document that the city paid $70,000. The engineer, Geosyntec, denies it. And all these requests for records, they can't find it. Yet, Dr. Stokel, Robert Jordan, and Nelson have promoted this fraud for over 3 years. I don't think they're appropriate for serving on this committee as a chairperson or even selecting the committee members. Thank you.
Any other cards? All right, city manager.
We're done on that. Petitions and requests to the public present, non-agenda items.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, forgot that. Our guy's gone. Member Stokel.
Yep. Just want to let you guys know that committee weeks are ending. I think Monday may be the last one. So they are starting to debate on the floor now. The smoking bill was heard today, past the second reading, going on to the third reading. So I will keep you guys posted. But there are some other bills that I'm watching as well that might not be so good for us, but I will keep you posted. We're fighting. So.
Member Jordan, or Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yes, sir. I feel compelled to respond to a certain person out there who really trying to disparage honest people and I'm going to apologize for him to council members who don't deserve this. It's embarrassing to me that someone who proclaims to be a Christian, he really stoops very low most of the time. And I found that those who call others names, they usually identify with those things. So I just want you all to know I respect you a whole lot. We don't get paid much up here, and we don't do it because we're looking for a few dollars that we get every month, but we do it because we love our city, we love our citizens, and you know, sometimes you get a squeaky wheel that comes at every meeting for no good, but to try to destroy all the positive things that we're doing. So my hats are off to all council members, but specifically since he named 2 people, 3 people, but I'm not worried about myself. It's more, I don't know, I just have a great respect for the people who sit on this council, and specifically for Dr. Stokel and Joe Linden. Good people, good hearts, who only want to do good things for the city of Titusville. You will not let any one person destroy a lifelong of giving and serving on the community.
Keep going that way then. Member Nelson.
I want to say thank you, Robert. Thank you. I think all of us up here are doing it because we want to see something happen in Titusville, something good. That being said, I want to say again, thank you to Parrish and to George McAterian, who provided the funds to redo Blanton Park. And I think that's going to be a great project. They say it's going to be done by June 1st. Knowing construction, I'm saying the end of June. And it was really interesting to me that Mr. Mkhitaryan so interested in it, that he actually did some of the planning. So he really took an interest in it. He swears he's going to play basketball there. A couple of us have our doubts, but we'll see. But, it's nice to know that we have people in the community that really care.
And Pastor Robinson.
Oh, wow. Ooh, I don't know whether to be the pastor or county commissioner in this particular and to first off, I must go to my first calling and calling to service. And when someone quotes the scripture, I say amen. And we as who proclaim to be Christian, I agree with Vice Mayor Jordan that says that it's certain areas and territories the Holy Spirit will not allow us to go, and if you go there, you're going and traveling at your own risk. So that's biblical fact, and we will. But it's been a good week. I haven't been sick, and I wanted to openly thank my counterpart down on the end, Sarah, for giving me those pills a couple of weeks ago.
Try to clarify.
That was a leave. It was a leave. Okay.
And everyone, several of us, including the city man, I had a toothache at the meeting, and I wouldn't have made it if she hadn't. Well, it knocked it out, I tell you. And I thank her for that, and I thank all of you. That we don't. My view of life and situation is sometimes different from all of yours, and some of yours. But I think that all of us, in our own way and right, have the interests of Titusville and its citizens at the top of our priority. And Vice Mayor Jordan said, I had to remind myself, we do get paid, don't we?
Easy to miss.
You never see it, but I want to thank you. And I want to also, after almost 14, 15 months sitting on the council and meeting with our city attorney and the city mayor. I want to thank them for some good conversation and some good guidance and good information on helping us to go through the material. You don't tell us what to do, you don't tell it, but you give us a good insight, and when we go, it enables me to make better decisions and to have a knowledge of what I'm reading instead of opening up a book and say, okay, what am I supposed to do with it? And you give us that, and I want to take this. I didn't do otherwise. I didn't use any gas for the city, so I didn't go anywhere. But at this time, but it's been a wonderful time. It's been a wonderful 2 weeks, and it's always a pleasure to come and sit and see how much difference, how differently we look at situations here, but yet we have the same common goal, and that's what's important. All right.
Thank you.
That's my sermon.
And I can tell you that it is disappointing that when we have various people, whether you work with the water, or you're the city manager, or you're up here, to have words thrown that, and it doesn't even have to be just one person, but in this case, it was one person. And coming back around, I was going to say the same thing, but I always speak last, and I appreciate that, member, Vice Mayor Jordan. And I don't understand, and certainly I've talked to you, Stan, a million times. I don't understand why that becomes part of what you do. But you may have noticed it was kind of twisted into the topic. So it was kind of, I've gotten my lessons from over there that we have to be careful about that. But I would say this, that Member Stokel and Member Nelson and I, we ran in 2016, And you almost get in trouble if you say we ran together, but we ran together. And we're still here, and things may switch out as we go. Member Jordan, Vice Mayor Jordan, you guys switch on me. Vice Mayor Jordan, goodness gracious, we go back to your school board days when I was the athletic director and head football coach. So we're going back into the 90s, early 90s. Yeah, it's close. And then Pastor Robinson, we just did a lot of hanging out at a lot of his events, and he always thanked me for being there, and he yelled at those that weren't. He was quick to say, where are they at? But with that said, I really feel like we do our very best. You make decisions every night. You make decisions that are going to make people happy and are going to make people mad. And we do our very best. I don't make any decision to make anybody mad, and I don't necessarily make any decision to make anybody happy on part. You just weigh everything we can weigh and try to do the right thing. And I said from day one, and anybody who, has an issue anyway, I always said I'm going to, do what I think is best for the city, kind of like being an athletic director. You do what you think is best for the athletic program. You do what you think is best for the city. And, not everybody's going to be happy. And like I said at the Saturday thing, when there's compromise, everybody's a little happy and everybody's not always happy. So with that, it's my honor to be here to work with you guys. And, again, it's already been said, but city manager and city attorney, I really appreciate the way you guys work with us as well. So over to you guys.
Yes, sir. Just one informational item, a couple dates for you. And as you recall, the annual student awards ceremony, we had to cancel it. We're returning back to normalcy. So that's scheduled for the 2nd of May at 6 p.m. at the Titusville High School Performing Arts Center. So it's good that we're getting back to normal. And I'd like to thank council members, and I know Ms. Nelson was not feeling well, but I'm glad you could spend my birthday together.
Well done.
So, that concludes my portion. If you have any questions.
No questions, city attorney.
Yes, Mayor. Earlier tonight, an issue by citizen was raised about procedure, and I want you to know that the way the council handled that was correct. The way the clerk handled that was correct. When you do have items that are quasi-judicial, and we read that in our speaking procedures, you do take the applicant
Absolutely.
and those in favor of something before those opposed, because you will have rebuttal at the end, and they need to understand before they do rebuttal. That was a legislative item we were discussing. And we did have a speaker who put in a card and might have been late. And we're not going to refuse someone to speak because they were in favor or not in favor of an item. They had a right to speak, and we recognize it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Nice to hear that. Are we good?
No, I got one more thing to say.
Oh, dang. I was going to say, you don't have your button pushed. You do have your button pushed.
It's about Saturday. Sarah called me a good leader twice on Saturday because I led she and Robert to the donut and coffee.
I was going to say you let him out the door, but you didn't. All right, you good?
Did you not?
I did coffee. All right, we're done. Dismissed.